Yudo dragged himself across the ground, panting and saying he doesn't want to die. Forcing himself to walk, he limped weakly, desperate to escape, and questioned why such things were only happening to him. He falls to the floor with a loud thud and lets go of his sword. Hopeless, he could do nothing but call to whoever could hear, and beg to be saved. Just then, the enemy stepped forward. The elite demon, brimming with power, turned the atmosphere so heavy and brought a palpable feeling of impending death. Yudo stood to face it, still trembling, but found himself absolutely miserable as he lived a life being tormented and looked down on. Feeling enraged, he demands to know if it was fun and makes them satisfied. Despite the tears in his eyes, the young man gripped his sword tightly, refusing to give up even if everyone laughs at him, and even if the entire world abandons him to die. He charged in, disappearing from sheer speed. There was no other option but to move forward and push through. However, his dedication won't make up for the gap between himself and the enemy who tears through his body. Pain surged throughout his whole being. Looking at the pathetic challenger on the ground, the demon gathered magic into its hand. It aimed with a smile on its face, knowing it had already won. A huge and powerful blast hits, but instead of disintegrating the target directly, it hits a few meters away. The floor takes most of the damage, causing everything to crumble and give out completely. With this, Yudo finds himself plummeting, and the last thing he sees is the demon's face, smiling as if wanting to say that a heroic death does not fit him at all. The young man reached out, vowing to become a strong challenger, as nothing has even started yet. In fact, things were just about to begin. With a resounding scream, the young man dies. The Magic Tower is an enigmatic structure beyond human understanding. It is the only common term for the tower-like dungeons that suddenly appeared on Earth. The interior is like a world straight out of a game. In it were swords, magic, skills, and of course dangerous monsters. The magic stones and treasures sleeping in the structures are then traded at high prices. Meanwhile, those who sought them are called challengers. That said, challenging the towers came with a risk to one's life, as even if it's like a game, death in the dungeon meant death in reality. While this is true for most people, Yudo opened his eyes with newfound life. He buries his face in his hand, saying it isn't how things should be going. The system activates his skill, Infinite Revival, automatically. It's a skill that can bring him back to life, no matter how many times he dies in the tower. It sounds like a broken power, but there's also a huge drawback. He was fooled. After graduating from high school, he drowned himself with part-time jobs. That's when the towers appeared, giving him hope that his life would change if he became a challenger. Every day became a struggle to seize magic stones and treasure, and in order to win that cutthroat competition, he tried to acquire a rare skill that no one else had. The one he approached was a merchant at the entrance of the Magic Tower. Foolish and naive, he withdrew all his savings and even went into debt to purchase Infinite Revival. With that, he obtained a body that doesn't die, but with each revival, he also received death penalties that apply permanent debuffs. His abilities and stats were reduced, and the amounts were ridiculous. Yudo had died 4 times so far, and the first time, his defense was reduced by 50. Since his original stat was only 53, a single blow after would bring him to the brink of death. The second time, his attack decreased by 70, and the third time, his health by 250. The negative effect received was random each time, and now his agility was reduced by 60. His current stat was 61, and the debuff will barely put him above the negatives. In the Magic Tower, one's body structure changes based on their stats, and he'll eventually become immobile if this continues. Once that happens, he won't be able to continue as a challenger, and will end up burdened and anchored with debt. After gambling all his money away on a completely worthless skill, as he revived once more, frustration started to take over. The young man's eyes opened wide as a beam of light shined on his beaten body. He lay on a pile of rubble, having fallen several meters down. With his agility down to 1, he feels extremely heavy, and it'll be hard to even move anymore. Unable to do anything about it, he looks around, wondering where he fell to. It's odd as he's never heard of such a place in the lower levels. Something catches his eyes at the end of the long corridor, and he screams in surprise as he sees a golden skill stone, one of the rarest of them all. If he manages to sell something like that, it might just be able to cover the debts he's in. His eyes beamed with determination as he promised to bring it back no matter what happens. There are no monsters in the vicinity, so it should be an easy win for him. However, he feels something shift as soon as he steps forward. Holes appeared on the walls. Suddenly and without any warning, countless daggers were shot out, riddling his entire body with blades that dug deep into his flesh. He screamed for a few agonizing moments until Infinite Revival kicked in and brought him back to life. This time, a permanent debuff of -65 was applied to his strength. Yudo jumped up in shock, heaving and panting from the experience. With this, he realizes that he's trapped between life and death. However, he refuses to be stopped by such a low-level trick. He can't move his limbs since even his muscle strength has been reduced. Nonetheless, he pushed forward, but felt something as he leaned on the wall for support. This time, a stone dragon appeared, with eyes beaming and identifying its target. It unleashes a torrent of flames, incinerating his entire body. The cycle continued. Knowing what was about to happen, he dodged the fire as soon as he was brought back to life. Fortunately, he manages not to trigger anything, despite rolling around on the floor. He finally understands the reason why the narrow path exists. It's meant to lure challengers and effectively kill them with traps while enticed by the rare skill stone. In normal circumstances, people would not be able to pass, no matter how many lives they have. Unfortunately for all of them, Yudo was currently the weakest challenger in the tower, but he's already gone through life and death multiple times. Overflowing with determination, he dashed forward, not caring about the fate that awaited him at every step. A guillotine drops, and the first death of the charge comes. Undeterred, he tries again, even with the debuffs. This happens again and again, so much so that he eventually loses count and sensation. Each passing is horrid and agonizing, while his consciousness slips more and more with each revival. However, he smiles in the end as he emerges victorious and puts his hand on the magic stone at the end of the path. His life was finally about to change, but his eyes lost focus and his life slipped away once more. The system asks if he wants to use the stone. As he was too hazy to respond, it takes it as an automatic affirmation and activates on its own. With this, Yudo acquires the skill Inversion. As always, he wakes up, this time with eyes oddly clear and bright. He moves around, feeling stronger and more vital than ever, and not even feeling the debuffs of his skill. Confused, he checks his status, and is shocked to find something different. All the negative effects on his statuses until now have all reversed and turned into buffs that make him stronger. The negative effects Yudo had been receiving since he got his skill have all turned positive and are now making him stronger. At the bottom of his stats, the window informs him that he's acquired a new skill. Inversion reverses all effects, including buffs, debuffs, and status abnormalities. His eyes grew in understanding. Thanks to that new ability, all the debuffs he's received so far have all switched to grant him positive effects. With his memory still hazy, he wonders where he got such a skill, then falls silent as he sees the empty box in front of him, missing the rare stone he was after. The valuable item was automatically used upon his touch, and while the pros are immeasurable, he can't help but feel sad since he can't sell it anymore. Looking at the brighter side, if the downsides of infinite revival are really reversed, then he'll only get stronger with every death. With this power, he can now rise to the top as a challenger. He vows to do just that, earn a fortune, and make his name known throughout the world. Putting a pin on that goal for now, he turns to the deadly path he just took, and realizes that he has to pass through it again. The instant death traps have returned to their pre-activated state, and he's pretty sure that they'll get triggered again if he gets close. In other words, he'll have to go through a handful of deaths like before. The young man breaks down, remembering the torture he went through just moments ago. Even if he's revived, every single death is still painful enough to make a normal person go insane. If he dies too many horrific deaths in a row, then he'll definitely lose his mind before getting out. For a short while, he shudders at the thought, but calms himself down eventually. Thanks to Inversion, his current stats are about double the original values. With that taken into consideration, he might just be able to break through the traps head-on. The uncertainty of things makes him gulp. Regardless, there is no other way to get through without dying. He plants his feet on the ground and gets ready to try. Dashing forward, the young man disappears in an instant. The traps are triggered like they were earlier, but his current speed was incomparable. Spears shot out and reached his face in no time. Mere millimeters from his eyes, the challenger sped up and with impressive agility, maneuvered around the weapons perfectly, dodging each and every one. Emerging unscathed, he confirms that he can not only see them, but move fast enough to stay safe. Turning into a completely different person within moments, he faces the next set of traps with newfound confidence and blasts through them, void of the hesitations that used to fill his body. The guillotine from before came like the others, but it was too slow and weak, barely even posing a threat as he quickly moved to the next challenge. This time, the fire-breathing stone dragon emerged, poised to incinerate him once more. Yudo won't let that happen again, and summons a sword from his inventory. As soon as he felt the weapon on his palms, he charged in to destroy the statue before it could even launch an attack. He steps on the last tile and triggers the set of dagger launchers, the first trap that killed him. Already expecting it, the glint in his eyes changed. Instead of dodging, he parried and deflected each blade with his own, proving the difference from before. He let a deep breath out after, and stood tall amid the rubble as he convinced himself. With a combination of the death penalties obtained each time he's killed and the inversion skill, he really can become the strongest challenger in history. The path of traps had been crossed, and all that was left to do now was climb back up. If it was the old him, the very idea of heading back up would have been impossible. Fortunately, the old him is long gone. Crouching down and gathering strength into his legs, Yuta launched himself to the ceiling and bounced off the sides of the walls to make his way up. All it takes is a little effort and focus to reach the opening to the upper floor. Still high in the sky, he faces the elite demon that killed him earlier and apologizes for making it wait too long. Landing lightly on his feet, he gripped his shabby blade ready. They were still far from each other, but suddenly clashed in the blink of an eye. Sparks flew as the enemies tested each other's strength, but they quickly fell back upon realizing the change. The demon watched silently, not knowing what happened, but the challenger just pointed his blade, asking if he wanted to try killing him again. Provoked by his arrogance, it roared in rage to affirm its choice. However, Yuto's eyes were void of the fear they earlier contained, and he's actually happy to play along. With just one life, how long can it fight against someone who has infinite revivals? He dashed in, excited to find out. Yuto made several quick steps toward his enemy, quickly closing the gap and reaching the demon's chest. With vision that's able to keep up with its movements, he dodges. As he thought, it's amazing how abruptly his stats increased. The tides change, and he deftly outmaneuvers the demon, cutting one of its arms off. It screamed in anger and pain. No longer afraid of its attacks, Yuto gets his next strike ready and goes for the enemy's head. A quick swipe sends it flying and crashing to the floor. Confident in his newfound power, the challenger arrogantly declares that he's won. However, a familiar bright light flashed from the rubble, and his past experience with it was jarring enough to be embedded into his brain. He runs away, well aware of how dangerous the incoming beam is. He manages to escape, and rightfully so, as it demolishes the spot he was just standing in. The demon ends its attack and takes a look at the aftermath, but is disappointed to see its target alive and well. It was fairly close, and he would have died if he had moved a second later. Thinking about it, Yuto says something has been bothering him for a while now. The elite demon doesn't look like any monster belonging to the third floor at all. As challengers go up the magic tower, the strength of the monsters on each floor increases accordingly. He charged in again, adding that something that's strong should be found much higher up. Hearing the human's annoying brain working, the enemy sends him back and unleashes an echoing strike with its wings. Unfortunately, the target manages to hold his ground. Because of the penalties and their corresponding inversions, his stats have increased significantly. It should be stronger than the challengers there, which makes it even stranger to find it roaming around. Unlike him, the demon isn't one to talk too much, and instead tries to strike the human down. The force sends him to the ground, but Yuto is skilled enough to defend and keep his footing. As the oddities become even weirder, he demands to know just what the monster is exactly. It refuses to answer, and is instead filled with enough killing intent to make a common man shiver. The young man didn't expect an answer anyway, but is certain that he's much stronger anyway. Trying to end things, it prepares the blast of magic power again, and it's worse this time around as it's gathering energy on both hands. Just then, something changes and black bolts replace the purple flashes. Instead of launching the beams, it pulls on the magic, elongating the concentrated spheres and turning them into blades of pure dark mana. From its stance alone, it's obvious that the demon is finally going to go all out from then on. With a resounding roar that shakes the tower, it swings its arm, sending an attack that rages in and out of the dungeon floor. Yuto does his best to run away, not knowing how to dodge as the attacks randomly sprout from below. While trying his hardest to survive, he sees the demon's silhouette hovering high above him. He reacts quickly and uses his blade to block the fierce enemy's claws. The force, although defended against, is enough to make the ground sink and crumble. He smiles and grit his teeth as the blade was inches away from his face. Just then, the smile leaves as he turns and sees the demon's free hand on the side, gathering energy to blast in while he was completely immobilized by the blade. He curses, unable to do anything. Finally, the tiny but powerful attack hits him directly on the head. The system chimed, saying he's died once more. Because of this, he receives a debuff of 40 points on his strength attribute. This isn't a bad ending, since the inversion skill kicks in immediately after. Believing it had won, the demon turned its back to walk away, not knowing what was coming. In the blink of an eye, Yuto appeared from above, ambushing with a lethal surprise attack. Once again, the elite monster proves its skill by defending even after getting struck unprepared. That said, its eyes were full of shock, while the challenger questioned its nerve to kill him. Capitalizing on his enemy's confusion, he unleashed a barrage of swings as it was still trying to comprehend what was happening. He complains about his deaths, despite being reversed, hurting like hell each time. With the new strength buff, he's able to push his target back unlike earlier, but it obviously still isn't enough to win. The two are locked, unable to move each other as they push against their opponent's blade. However, the demon has the advantage again as a being with complete control over its magic. It uses the connection of their blades and sends a shock wave to envelop them both. Before Yudo could run away, the spell hit, and his entire body was consumed by the power. With this, another death is added to his list, with the death penalty decreasing his agility by 60 points. Inversion works automatically. Waking up and not even bothered anymore, the young man notes the change in his body. He's now more confident than ever, especially with the trait that was buffed. Standing and facing the monster, which glared while seething from its own attack, Yudo says it tried hard and fought really well. It's unfortunate. The newly revived human dashed forward, seeming to leave an after image from his sheer speed. The demon, not knowing how he's even faster now, struggled to keep up with all the changes. The pathetic man he killed just a few hours ago had been reborn into a different and unbelievably powerful person. One final exchange ends it. Standing apart and facing away from each other, the impact finally hits the demon. The battle ended with the enemy cut into several chunks in an instant. Ultimately, its life was limited unlike his, meaning it had no chance of winning from the start. Turning to look at his opponent, a weird feeling of respect filled Yudo. Whether they go to hell or if it somehow gains a few more lives in addition to this one, he hopes to meet again. When that time comes, it would be nice to have a fair fight that's just as intense as this one. With this, he leaves with a grin on his face. With the battle over, Yudo slumps onto the ground, exhausted after trying his best to defeat the demon. He got stronger with each death, but it still irks him that he has to go to such ridiculous lengths. Picking his sword up, he takes a close look at the weapon and falls grim as he sees it crumble and shatter. Since he needs to buy a new one, he decides to earn some money by collecting magic stones. There were huge bunches of stones growing from the dungeon holes and crevices. Meanwhile, the Hermes Tower's first floor was a safe area for challengers. Actually, there is a section where monsters don't appear, at the entrance of each floor of the tower. Those are places where adventurers can gather and rest when exhausted from exploring the dangers of the dungeon. Also, while going on about their adventuring, they may obtain equipment and items. There are often stalls in the area where people are allowed to buy, sell, and trade them. Yudo gets right to work and sells the crystals to buy a silver sword that's much sturdier. That said, it's disappointing as he had to use most of his money to pay. He shakes those thoughts away, certain that he has no way to go but up now, and convinces himself that it's an initial investment to make that happen. Just then, he realized that the people around him were staring and gossiping quietly. Some snickered while others felt bad, calling him a naive guy who was fooled into buying the infinite revival skill. He sighs in amusement, realizing the pitiful reputation he had made for himself. Annoyance then took over, and he says they should have warned him if they all knew the scammer. Revival might be a trash skill to the other people there, but for him who obtained inversion to pair it with, it is an undoubtedly got tier skill enough to make him unrivaled. Since it's something that only he can do and master, it has turned into something much cooler than it initially was. Just then, his proud thoughts were interrupted as a loud voice rang throughout the safe area. Turning to face the source, he sees commotion by the dungeon entrance. A group led by a particularly large man says he intends to challenge the mid-boss on the 5th floor. Proud of his name, he introduced himself as Nogi, also known as the Dominator. Yudo recognizes him and sighs at the familiar sight. The Dominator is a title given to those who challenge the boss room at the top of the Magic Tower. Magic Towers disappear once the boss on the top floor is defeated. Once such arduous milestones are reached, the adventurers involved are able to obtain unique equipment. Dominators are usually respected by ordinary adventurers, but this particular group is questionable. Yudo's eyes opened up in surprise as he realized who the Dominator was arguing with. Mana says he's just a person who happened to take a low-tier magic tower down. Yuri tries to calm her down, but the level 15 challenger just adds on, saying anyone can do the same. She insists that they found the boss room first and is unwilling to let a fake Dominator snatch the rewards. The mage, seemingly much meeker, says it might be better to let the others handle such dangers. With her comrade's submissiveness, Mana has no choice but to keep quiet as well. She bites on her lip in frustration as Nogi annoyingly settles the argument with their silence. According to him, little girls like them should keep quiet and watch, while he uses the bestowed unique equipment AEs to shield any attack that might come his way. The group laughed at the women, cackling as their figures shrunk smaller. Just then, their attention is taken away as Yudo calls their names. They don't even have a chance to greet each other, as Nogi pushes between them, eager to take a look. He smiles as wretched ideas come to his mind. Raising his voice enough for everyone to hear, he puts his face near the young man, recalling how he was duped by a merchant into buying a useless skill. Piling on the insults one after another, he adds that it must feel pathetic to be exploited like that. Yuta remains silent for a while, unbothered by the tirade, and sighs with a smile. Surprisingly, he turns to the young women and asks them to give the mid-boss room to the Dominator's group. Mon is stunned and feels betrayed, unable to believe that even he felt that way. Ignoring No-E snickering from behind, he calms them down with a smile. Putting on a maniacal and sinister expression, he says their goal would be to take the boss on the top floor instead. What's more, they're going to do it at a speed that not even the others can keep up with. The two froze in disbelief, doubting what they just heard. The young man promises that he isn't just saying things and has an actual plan to do it. On the other hand, No-E clicked his tongue as he seethed with anger. Insulted by the words directed at him, he curses the boy and pulls his arm back to attack. He charged in, saying they aren't even allowed to call it bullying this time, but Yuta remained completely calm. To the Dominator's surprise, he weaves and dodges the first 3 attacks, which were thrown with full force. He nonchalantly extends his foot, and the opponent suddenly found himself falling. With this, he crashes to the floor, while the low-tier challenger doesn't even remove his hands from his pockets. The man's lackeys ran to him, asking if he's okay, but he doesn't even know what happened. Still on the ground, he turns around in surprise upon seeing a shadow cast over him. Standing tall with uncaring eyes, Yuta asks how long he intends to keep rolling around. Since they're all there, he wants to see the great Dominator challenge the mid-boss in person. With that, he calls on everyone to join and encourages them to get a move on and start already. Going together, the group walks silently and soon reach the Magic Tower's 4th floor. Mana cautiously calls to Yuto, and they ask if it's really safe to follow No-E to the boss. All things considered, she says he isn't actually as strong as he makes himself out to be. Yuri shares her sentiments, as even the monsters they've come across until now are really strong. The young man brushes their worries off and says there's nothing to worry about at all. The 2 ladies are challengers he met while exploring the tower. Compared to them, who are level 15 and 13, he's a meager level 8 challenger. That said, the current him has no care about levels, as all his stats have been increased by his skills. No matter what fight they find themselves in, he'll be able to turn everything into dust alone. Just then, No-E called to him, saying it's fine to see how they fight the mid-boss, but added that they'll be alone against small fries. He was trembling in fear earlier, but based on his arrogance, it seems he's pulled himself together. Suddenly, the entire floor shook violently, and a heavy pressure filled the air. A monster unexpectedly appeared from above, aiming for a surprise attack on the Dominator. He notices and reacts on time, and uses his shield to block any damage. Trying to fight back, he swipes his arm, but the enemy just uses it to bounce back and put some distance after the failed ambush. The lizard man readied its blade, eager to take the unwelcome visitors out. It roared loudly, its voice echoing throughout the halls. No-E smirks confidently, feeling like it won't be a problem to defeat just one monster. However, Yuto suddenly asks them to wait. With a horrified expression, he says there's something terribly wrong. Just then, countless eyes glowed in the dark, and a chilling air swept over the entire floor. Countless lizard men appeared, leaping in and charging at the unsuspecting adventurers. They questioned what was happening all of a sudden, but the monsters suddenly knelt and bowed as a red being stepped forward. A lizard commander came into the light, smiling as it had full control over the swarm. Pointing its blade at the humans, it orders its subordinates to attack, and so they do. They were all surrounded, but as Yuto assured them earlier, there was nothing to worry about with him there. Unaware of this, Mana called to Yuri urgently, saying they should protect their much weaker friend. Surprised, the young man stops before he could even begin, as the 2 women move to guard his sides. He's worried for their safety, and tries to tell them that he can fight too, but his words only irk his comrade. She scolds and screams that he shouldn't act tough in situations as dangerous as this. A silence filled the air, and he turned to look at her in confusion. She meets his gaze with a troubled expression, and says the enemies are completely out his league. He clicks his tongue in disappointment, but Yuri also adds on, pleading that he stay behind them, since it's dangerous if he strays too far. His heart sank upon hearing these words. Watching them fight and do their best to trim the horde down, one by one, the low-level challenger tries to insist that he can fight alongside them. He calls out multiple times, desperate to be acknowledged, but his voice eventually falls flat, and so do his hopeful arms. Standing motionless while the others are the busiest they'd ever been, he realizes right then and there that all he was seen as was a mere liability to take care of. The feeling was downright terrible, and he hated every second of it. No-E fought hard, sending the lesser lizard men away, but was unfortunate enough to be targeted by the commander. The enemy's blade was swung right at him, and although he managed to block with his unique item, the The sheer force was strong enough to send him flying away. He yelled from the unexpected strength, but managed to regain his balance fast. However, the situation turns from bad to worse as he feels his foot sink on the floor tile. Having experienced this countless times before, Yudo panics immediately, realizing that he stepped on a trap. Just then, a huge area below him collapsed, sending the young man hurtling down alone. Cursing loud, the others turn back and belatedly see him falling, but it's too late. In the dark, he questions why he's the one falling, and not Nogi who triggered the trap. As the tower's name, Hermes, implies, countless traps put the brave or foolish challengers at the mercy of the dungeon. Fortunately, Yudo is far from an ordinary challenger, and such traps don't even faze him in the slightest. He's been falling for a while, and crashing down would spell the end for him. With great skill, the young man bounces off the walls and pillars to land perfectly on the floor. Stretching his limbs and checking on his joints, he confirms that he's uninjured. That said, he hears shuffling from behind and turns to see what's happening. There, he sees familiar red figures from the first pillar up to the very back of the room. They were all clad in armor and carrying dangerous weapons. There's no way to run, and the monsters definitely weren't letting him get off so easy. He walked confidently, saying he's also had enough. Sick of all the traps and tricks, Yudo summons his new weapon and lets his sinister energy overflow. Despite their numbers, the commanders suddenly shivered in fear as he called everyone to charge. After all, they're all just going to serve as subjects to test his sword on. He dashed in like a tornado of destruction, taking several out in one blow, and saying they'll soon realize what they did by bringing him into such a closed space. All the commanders there are ranked so high that until recently, Yudo wouldn't be able to handle them. A brave one jumped in, making the first attempt to attack. Unfortunately, things have changed, and he now faces the enemy with complete confidence. It swings its blade down, but instead of getting blocked, the monster's arm is forced wide open, completely overpowered. With intense focus, the challenger follows through without missing a beat. He moves past the enemy, cutting the lizard's body cleanly in half. Defeating them now was no trouble, and he proves this by standing tall against the next wave. Like an adventurer far beyond his level, he maneuvers, spinning, swinging, and moving so fast that the enemies can't even see him. Before even realizing what happened, a couple of commanders lose their heads. The assault stops, and Yudo asks them what the problem is. They were all waiting for someone to fall into the trap, but none of them were moving anymore. With a challenging grin, he orders them all to come together and try to kill him if they can. Provoked, they roared and rared to fight, but the human moves first and was already running towards their group. Able to fight properly against such a large number, he races through those standing idly. He's no longer the person he used to be and does not need to be protected like people think. The remaining monsters inched away, fearing him as if he were death incarnate. Meeting their eyes, he says he understands how they feel. After all, he's already experienced it several times, especially as a weakling among the strong. He looked down at a lizard man who was on the ground and shivering in terror, and promised to end things in an instant as a favor. After a while of ending the monster's miseries, Yudo breathes hard, tired and spent. Just then, he sees a staircase leading to the floor above. He walked up without much care, figuring that it'd be the way back to his companions. A while later, the heavy stone door on the wall opened, and he walked out looking completely unbothered. Exhausted from what seemed to be a routine of falling and climbing, he misses his friends. They notice him first, and run to the young man upon seeing him alive. Yuri quickly checks on his body, determined to see if there are any serious injuries. She sighs in relief and lets out a tender smile, after confirming that he's all okay. They really wanted to help him, but couldn't find a path leading down. Surprised that he was there all alone, they asked if he was attacked by anything while he was alone. Deciding to keep it a little secret, he lies and says he wasn't. Ignoring the pile of dead lizards on the floor below, the young man says there were no issues. Come to think about it, he notices that Nogi and the others are missing from the group. After Mana defeated the lizardmen, the man assumed he was dead and went straight to the boss room. She's still furious as he was the one who triggered the trap anyway, but Yudo calms her down. While the two women were silent, he turned away and called to them. With a sheepish smile, he expresses his gratitude that they even worried about him in the first place. They're surprised by his words at first, but laugh it off like it was only natural. With this, the trio hurries to continue their exploration, hoping to catch up to Nogi's group in time. However, as he turned to speak to the women, Yudo's eyes grew in surprise and worry. There was a lizard man behind them, likely one of the few they failed to finish off earlier. It leapt up to attack Yuri, who was completely oblivious to the danger closing in on her. As he screamed to warn her, the girl turned to see what's wrong, but the monster was already too close. Hearing Yudo's warning, the two girls reacted. However, they were too slow, and the young man had already disappeared from his spot before they could even turn towards the monster. In that instant, he appeared between it and his friend, blocking the attack just in time. While Yuri was still trying to grasp the situation, Mana moved instantly, dashing in and telling them to leave things to her. With her dual daggers, she unleashes an attack on the monster and takes it out in one swift blow. They sigh in relief as it was an undeniably dangerous situation, but it was all over now. Yuta returns to the inventory and Yuri approaches to bashfully thank him for saving her life. Flustered, he awkwardly responds, saying it was just good that he made it in time to do so. Watching the two get along, Mana smiles slyly, recognizing the chemistry between the two. Although it's a shame, she has to interrupt and ask the young man how he reacted so quickly. He smirks and says he might be much more useful than they expect. Now leading the group, he's no longer dead weight to the people around him. After a while of walking, the trio reaches the 5th floor of the Magic Tower. While the ladies chat, Yuta looks through his status window, which shows his level progress after defeating the group of commanders. Since his status increase from leveling up isn't a buff, it fortunately isn't affected by inversion. That said, the range of his status increase this way was completely laughable compared to what he's used to. The attack status change from death penalty was 65, while the level up only granted him a measly 2 points. With this, it becomes clear one more that the combination of inversion and infinite revival was seriously and undeniably overpowered. Just then, they called for his attention and pointed to the spot in front. The group faced a huge stone gate, which was the entrance to the 5th floor mid-boss room. Mana explains that the Magic Tower is predicted to have a total of 10 floors. Since Hermes hasn't been there for too long, the ladies were the first to discover the room's existence. Unfortunately, they returned to the 1st floor to prepare for the fight and ran into Noi's crew. She roars again as retelling the story reminds her of the unfair situation. Yuri calms her down, rubbing and petting the girl as if she were a growling dog. Regardless, they're at the gate now, and the others should just be on the other side fighting. No matter how much one prepares and strategizes, a mid-boss is something to be taken seriously. A bright red light shone as he entered the room, continuing to walk as he failed to notice a flying body high above. He turns his head, and everyone is suddenly on high alert, as they see a fellow challenger crash into the wall with so much force. The man was barely clinging on to life, but in front of them was a large and familiar silhouette. Nogi barely turns to acknowledge him, surprised that Yuto was still alive. Smirking confidently, he tells him to face forward and take a look at the mid-boss protecting the room. A colossal monster glared at him. The Orc Lord, immense and overflowing with power, roared as it faced those who dared to challenge him. It leapt, making the ground beneath them quake, and raised its axe to attack the first man. The young challenger screams, worried about Nogi. However, the Dominator laughs and says he doesn't need concern from small fry like him. The boss swings down with all his power, but he stands his ground and blocks it without any trouble. He confidently deflects the axe, saying an attack like that has no chance of getting through his Aegis shield. The Lizardman attack earlier was different, as he was just caught off guard by the surprise attack. In a one-on-one fight, he has no intention of losing, especially with his unique equipment. Calling to Yuto, he tells him not to look away, and watch clearly to understand the huge gap between them. With this, the Orc Lord charged in with a resounding scream. Yuri checks on the man that was sent crashing into the wall, and confirms that he's okay. Considering how he was sent flying with one blow, he's amazed by his leader's strength. Nogi was facing the Orc Lord alone, not budging an inch despite the attacks. Standing his ground with a smile, he tells Yuto not to look away, as he was going to show the huge gap between them. The boss swung with all his strength, and it's enough to make the ground beneath them crumble. While he's moved a few inches away, his body remains compact and unharmed, since the shield absorbs all the damage without problems. Seeing that his attacks weren't doing much damage, the boss roared in absolute frustration. With a different and more sinister glint in its eyes, it raised its weapon again. An attack comes, then a second, then a third. The barrage of swings makes the attacker huff in exhaustion, but his target only laughs in amusement. If this is the true power of a mid-boss, then it would be an automatic win for a challenger like him, who's also a dominator. Yuta watched as their match unfolded, and he couldn't help but be impressed by the power of the unique equipment received from a tower boss. Nogi's stats alone shouldn't be that impressive, but the shield is the perfect defense against the boss. The orc struck once again, but its repetitive and simple strikes have become far too easy to read. It no longer takes much for the leader to bounce it off and signal his comrades to follow up. The two men charged in and wounded the defenseless orc while it lost its balance. Trying to regain its footing, the enemy pushes its body forward and ducks down. Nogi takes immediate advantage of this and jumps up, saying it shouldn't have lowered its head. Clenching his fist tight, he drives it into the orc's head, planting the monster into the hard ground. This combination assault manages to defeat the monster, and it falls down, unmoving and vanquished. The group leader excitedly turns to Yudo, still breathing hard, and proudly exclaims that it's the strength of a proper challenger. The young man smirks, looking particularly uncaring. He says he now understands the real power of a unique item. Nogi is too dumb to realize that he had just been insulted, and just proceeds to laugh at the women, saying weaklings like them would never be able to achieve such feats. Just then, one of his teammates called to him and suggested that they look at the amazing thing at the back. In the middle of the room, a golden treasure shined brightly, illuminating the entire area. The Dominator pushed everyone away, eager to claim it, as there was surely a rare item inside. After all, it looks even better than the chest that contained his beloved unique item. Just then, the multiple deaths he experienced just earlier flashed in Yudo's mind. It was impossible for a mid-boss reward to reward something that's better than a tower boss item. Realizing what was happening, he tried to stop Nogi, but the hasty man had already opened the chest. He let his guard down. Even if it was just for a moment, they shouldn't have forgotten that the tower was riddled with atrocious traps. To the man's surprise, a lavish chest was completely empty inside. While he groaned in annoyed confusion, huge and multiple magic circles were released. The light shone bright and engulfed them whole. Suddenly, they found themselves in a similar but dark room, lit only by faint glows scattered around. From a glance, it was obvious that they were no longer in the mid-boss room. Nogi starts panicking and trembles as he says that they must be kidding. The pressure in the room was something he had only experienced once before. Asked where, he says he felt it at the top floor of the magic tower. Just then, magic circles appeared once more, much more sinister than the golden ones earlier. In the middle of the room, an enormous creature appeared, holding such an immense aura. Claiming his throne, the tower boss sat to greet his challengers. The monster's eyes glowed with life, and it greeted its unwelcome visitors with a resounding roar that made the entire room shake. They're still having trouble grasping the twist that they're now at the top floor. However, all their doubts are quelled as the system confirms it, saying they've been forcefully transported. In other words, the creature before them was none other than the Ogre Emperor, master of the magic tower Hermes. Without wasting any time, the enemy charged in with its huge blade, pulling its arm back as it went straight for the two men. The Emperor is on a completely different level from the enemies Yudo has faced before. Except for his own, nobody's stats are high enough to take it on. He tells the others to let him handle it, but Nogi seriously orders him to stop spewing nonsense. Surprisingly, the arrogant challenger seems to care for their lives and warns that he might die. The young man tries to remind them about his infinite revival, but he and his group were already charging in, pushing Aegis forward. Moving in unison, the lackeys hit the monster right on its skin, putting all their strength into their swings. They get their hopes up as they successively land direct hits. However, it's not that they did well, but the boss just didn't bother to block their weak attacks. As they were about to get swiped away, Nogi rushed in with a resolute warcry and told the beast not to underestimate him. After all, he's one of the proud dominators of this era. Putting himself between the monster and his comrades, he blocks the swing. However, the Emperor is too strong, and his axe breaks through the challenger's shield, cutting through his body. The others gasp in absolute shock, not expecting him to be taken out in one blow. The shield, now shattered into pieces, was supposed to be able to block against any type of attack. Nogi's status window turned red. Due to insufficient stats, the abilities of Aegis could not be activated properly. These words felt like a cruel joke as the challenger lay on the floor, lifeless. Screaming in disbelief, his companions tried to rush to him, ignoring the warnings to stay away. Just then, the merciless boss swung again, this time cutting through the rest of them like paper. Bodies, weapons, and armor fell to the floor alike. Yudo trembled and grit his teeth, struggling to come to terms with how fast things were going. He curses their fate. Aside from the ladies, he's now the only one facing the boss. He prepared to attack once more. The two backed up, wanting to take a chance and try running away. Mana turns to face the door, but freezes as she sees sealing magic applied on it, essentially locking them in. With no way to escape the boss room, dread starts to set in, and they wonder if they're going to die as well. The ogre attacks while they're distracted, aiming right for the defenseless Yuri. The poor girl hopelessly put her arms up to guard, knowing they'd do nothing. Just then, metals clash and sparks flew, as Yudo arrived just in time to deflect the axe. The women are stunned to see what he just did, but he stood there coldly and submerged in intense focus, refusing to let anyone else die on his watch. He swears to make that happen, even if it costs him his life. Yudo dodges the boss strike, which demolishes the very ground beneath them. After jumping back to gain momentum, he launched himself forward to strike through the enemy's arm. Unfortunately, even a direct hit results in nothing but a shallow cut. With speed unbefitting something of that size, the ogre dashed forward to retaliate. In an instant, its enormous figure appears right above the puny human. Its claws are driven down into the floor, barely missing the pesky and swift target. He tries to counter, knowing full well that he's faster than the beast, but his blade only clashes with the hard gauntlet as the boss raises its arm in time. The two challengers watched in awe and disbelief, unable to understand how their weak little friend was taking on the Tower Master all on his own. Yuta falls back. Despite being buffed immensely by his skills, he was still being overpowered. While it's disappointing, it should be expected from something like the final boss. For now, he still doesn't have the stats to beat it, so he intends to focus on depleting its stamina instead. As for slaying the monster, that can wait until after he dies a few times. Fearlessly, and without an ounce of hesitation, he leapt towards the colossal enemy. Each brush and collision was death-defying for the human, and while he tried hard to get a few direct hits in, none of them cut deep enough to do any real damage. More annoyed than in pain, the ogre roared and countered, sending him flying across the room. With his body left unguarded, he realizes that he's already reached his limit. The enemy doesn't let go of the chance and swipes its claws right through his body. The gruesome death happens right in front of Yuri, whose eyes tremble in absolute shock after witnessing the traumatic scene. When she lets out an ear-piercing scream, the system informs Yuto that he's died once more. As a penalty, he receives a debuff of 55 on his agility, which quickly turns into a positive value. It's all good, as the young man is determined to revive and stand back up until the enemy is defeated. His friends watch him rise, remembering the power of his infinite revival skill. That said, they're also well aware of the drawbacks that come with it. Knowing the severity of the debuffs, they question how he was still able to fight despite it all. He dies again almost instantly this time, and ends up with additional resilience. This isn't what he needs right now, so the young man continues to fight back. Another death grants him an increase in health. Refusing to stay down, he wills on the death penalty, ordering it to give him the stat that will allow him to deal fatal damage to his enemies. Standing tall against the ogre, he greets death with open arms. Yuto opens his eyes and bolts up, heaving and panting from continuously losing his life. As expected, the excruciating pain that came with each execution was slowly driving him crazy. But fortune favors the bold and tenacious. He passionately smiles as the desired attack stat finally increased, and with a jackpot buff rate at that. Surprisingly, he doesn't immediately get sent back, as a new window informs him that he's unlocked the ability to specify a respawn point. Slightly confused, he asks for a more detailed explanation and reads through the skill description. He smirked in satisfaction and stood up, delighted by the useful addition. With this, the alert for revival appeared, and he appeared right above the Emperor. This time, it was his turn to kill the enemy. Yuto is given the fairly useful ability to designate the spot where he'll be reincarnated. It's probably a feature meant to stop him from getting stuck in cycles of death. If he always reincarnates in the exact spot he died, like a pool of lava for example, then he wouldn't be able to escape despite revival. But having the ability to choose his respawn point would save him from such situations. This is the main point of this feature, but on the battlefield there should be other utilizations. In this instance against the boss, he can easily choose an area and place himself in its blind spot. The young challenger finishes his preparations and activates his revival. Appearing perfectly behind the ogre, he dives from above, ready to take the kill this time around. He grips his sword tight and swings down with all his might, forcing the beast to fall. The ladies are surprised and wonder how he got there in the blink of an eye. Yuto makes sure to note how he appears to others, but there isn't much freedom to do so as the boss fights back. He dodges without any hitches. Nogi and his group were a bunch of nasty people, always arrogantly bullying others, but not once did he think that any of them deserved such a gruesome fate. By defeating the monster in front of him, he's sure to obtain a powerful unique item as a reward. While most would fight for this, the one thing he desires more than that now is the Ogre Emperor's life. It smashes its fist, aiming for the young man and destroying the floor in progress. To its surprise, it sees its target completely unharmed and running up its arm. Facing the challenger that was speeding towards the head, the ogre's expression turned grim as it realized its fate. Swinging up, Yuto unleashes a devastating blow to end the battle, finally taking the enormous monster's life. Soon enough, it stopped breathing and moving. Assured of his victory, he sighs and returns his silver blade to the inventory. The system announces that he's defeated the boss and sends unique equipment and valuable magic stones. While the reward was surely something to be happy about, the young man can't help but have mixed feelings. His grim and guilty thoughts are cut short as Yuri runs to hug him from behind, crying in relief that he's safe and sound even after all that. Realizing how tightly she was hugging him, the girl jumped back, turning red as she apologized for getting carried away. Mana came next, quietly approaching to thank him. Without his help, the two of them would definitely have died in the boss' hands. However, his way of fighting was just far too reckless, regardless of the situation. Sacrificing himself like he did over and over again just to achieve his goal was plainly painful to watch for his friends. She apologizes, feeling bad for scolding their companion, despite being saved by him. Patting her head, Yuto assures her that there's no need to worry about it. He knows his fighting style is too much, and apologizes for subjecting them to such a horrible sight. Even if he fails over and over again, he will always come back to life in full health. That said, he screams, curses, and trembles in frustration over how much the process hurts. Seeing him close to crying, Mana calms her friend down. Since it's a bit too much for him as well, he promises to do his best and avoid dying if possible. Reassured by his words, their expressions brighten up like before. Just then, the system chimed, informing them that the tower would soon disappear, as it had already been conquered. Remembering this unchangeable rule, they wave goodbye, agreeing to see each other again on the outside. When the two women disappear, Yuto takes some time to turn back and look at the corpses of the fallen challengers. He burns the image into his mind, vowing to never forget them. With this, he says goodbye one last time. Just like that, the magic tower that once reached the heavens suddenly vanished from the city like it was never there. A director receives the news that Hermes has just been conquered. It hasn't even been half explored yet, but her assistant confirms the report. The disappearance of the tower has been verified, and all she can do now is wait for more details. Putting the device down for now, she smirks, saying things are becoming quite amusing. The magic tower disappears, and the people inside are sent back to the city. The civilians and challengers alike pointed in surprise as they watched Hermes, huge as it was, disappear into thin air. Observing like the others, Yuto grasped the reality of the situation and what he had just achieved. He clenched his fist in victory, silently acknowledging that he actually conquered a magic tower. However, his smile didn't last long, quickly fading as sadness and guilt caught up almost instantly. Those around him start talking about the boss that was defeated, even though the dungeon hadn't even been explored properly to the halfway point. Confused, they wonder if someone strong came and finished it off randomly. Hearing this, Yuto considered claiming the victory and glory. If there hadn't been any casualties, then he would have been happy to announce it like that. It seems that conquering a tower for the first time has really increased his self-confidence. Standing up and dusting himself off, he makes a mental note not to get too carried away. With that said, he decides to keep the truth about the boss room a secret for now, as it'd attract too much attention. The young man tries to get out of the area quietly, but gets spotted by his friends. Mana calls his name and runs to him. With a loud voice, she eagerly asks what unique item he received from defeating the tower boss. An awkward silence passed for a moment as the onlookers tried to grasp what she just said. Several doubt what they heard, aware that he's the man who was scammed into buying a trashy skill. Despite that, it was undeniable that he was now the dominator of Hermes. After running into an alley, the three finally managed to get some alone time. Yuto sighs in exhaustion, relieved that they finally got away. The people from earlier made such a fuss. Some were filled with curiosity, while others bold with spite. Cheekily winking and clasping her hands, Mana apologizes for being careless. He took the boss down, and while it's a secret that he did so alone, it's natural for him to gain some attention. The reality that he had earned the title of Dominator was still a strange feeling, especially since he was so weak just a while ago. At the end of it all, buying the infinite revival skill turned out not to be a mistake. Speaking of the skill, Yuri lets her curiosity take over and brings up the negative effects that supposedly come with each death. She asks how he's still able to move so well despite it, but the question stumps him and he struggles to explain. The young man wonders how to explain the inversion skill, and where to even start the story. Thinking she made a mistake due to his pause, the girl says she isn't cornering him, and was just curious. It isn't really a big deal, and it isn't something he wants to hide from them. Just then, Mana gives him a free pass, saying they can hear the explanation later on. For now, there's something else she needs to know. Her eyes change as she excitedly asks about the reward he got for defeating the boss. Surprised, he asks to wait for a moment, but falls confused as he repeatedly tries and fails to summon his inventory. It's because they're no longer in the magic tower. Fundamentally, a window can only be opened while inside magic towers. The use of other things such as stats and skills are also limited to the borders of the dungeons. Because of this system, there aren't any incidents of challengers causing havoc in normal society. However, there is one exception, a place outdoors where they're able to use their challenger powers. That would be at the site of the magic towers. Passing through the nearest one, they feel themselves entering a different area. Even now, they can't get used to the strange feeling that fills the site of dungeons. With this, he can at least open the windows properly. They gather around him, intent on seeing the item he was rewarded with. In the middle of his inventory was the unique equipment, Foes Aminos. Yudo clicks on the sword to equip it, and they are suddenly enveloped in a bright and golden light. As if he was being called to, he raised his arm and opened his palm, welcoming the figure that materialized by it. He stood there, amazed as the obsidian and crimson weapon sat in his hands, humming with power. Yudo swings around his new foe's sword and gets excited about using it in his next Magic Tower quest. Mana sees from Yuri's face that she wants to be with Yudo on his next mission but is too shy to ask. She puts on a mischievous face as she gets an idea. She approaches Yudo and asks if he wants to form a party with them for the next mission. Instantly, Yuri raises her hand and says that she wholeheartedly agrees. The two are so taken aback by her that they are unable to react. Yuri realizes that what she just did was awkward and becomes conscious of their looking at her. She asks if Yudo is willing to have her. The man replies that he is because they are friends. She and Mana become excited. Mana goes on to stare at Yudo with a smile, confusing the lad. She asks him which magic tower they should go to next. She is so hyped up that she suggests that they go to an even stronger tower than Hermes. Yudo thinks about it and realizes that there is a specific place he wants to go to. This intrigues the girls, who think he is about to suggest a big quest. He tells them that he wants to go to Tokyo to the Challenger Bureau. His answer confuses the girls, who ask why not a magic tower. The man goes on to say that the Bureau will buy his magic stones for a higher price than those at magic tower stalls. He breaks down to complain about how he really needs to go there because of his debts buying the infinite revival. His breakdown and reasoning make the girls feel uncomfortable. Elsewhere is the large building of the Tokyo Challenger Bureau. The narrator spells out that the Management Bureau is a government organization that supports challengers. They have duties like updating magic tower information in real time or buying and selling magic stones and weapons for fair prices. The Bureau is known for its fairness, unlike magic tower stalls that are known to rip off challengers. Their headquarters is built on the site of a magic tower, and so no challengers can use their powers within their territory. Yudo came to the tower and waited for his turn to be called at the reception area so he could trade his magic stones. The receptionist calls for his turn, so he checks his window to release all the magic stones he has in storage. He presses the button to summon his storage stones, only for there to be so many that they fill the receptionist's table. The receptionist is shocked, and so is Yudo, who did not realize he got so many for clearing Hermes. The receptionist gets her composure back and asks that they continue the exchange process. He receives his money and is tingling since he has now become wealthy. He goes to Yuri and Mana, who suggest that he avoid reckless spending. Mana, in particular, strongly warns him to not get into debt again by overspending his money. It makes Yudo give up hope for the dream shopping he was about to do. Yudo suddenly feels a strong and dangerous presence that makes him tense up. He sees that it is coming from a woman approaching them. She introduces herself as the chief of the Tokyo Bureau, Fumi. He asks for Yudo's time and proves that she knows him by telling him that he is the dominator of Hermes as well as knowing his full name. Yudo recalls that she knows Fumi as the one known as the strongest challenger in the Bureau who has conquered 3 magic towers. She even appeared in advertisements for the Bureau as they leaned into her fashion model good looks. It feels weird to Yudo that he is now looking at such a famous figure. He asks her what the president of the Bureau wants with him. She tells him that she wants to hold a hearing about how he conquered Hermes. More importantly, she wants to verify his power as a dominator. The trio walks with Fumi, who hears all about their story in the dungeon. She appreciates them telling her all about it and promises that the Bureau will contact Nogi and his party's family. Fumi can tell that the mention of the dead made the trio sad. She asks them if their deaths pain them. Yudo starts twitching and grinding his teeth just remembering Nogi and the others' deaths. He tears up and admits that it felt painful. Finally, having someone understand the pain makes him feel better. Fumi brings the trio to the large training room. Fumi tosses Yudo a sword that the man finds dull. She tells him that it is the sword they use for training. She pulls out her own training sword and tells him to fight her so that she can properly understand his true power as a dominator. Yudo is not comfortable about this. On the other hand, Mana wants him to tell the bureau chief that he will send her flying. Yudo goes into a fighting stance and says he will take this seriously. Fumi asks him if he is ready, and he says he is. He acknowledges that his opponent is known to be the strongest but believes that Fumi will also have a hard time against him since he is also a dominator. Fumi is 10 feet away from him, only for her to get inches near him in the blink of an eye. She slashes and he manages to evade. Despite the man looking worried from being caught off guard, Fumi looks calm and collected as he continues on the offensive. She goes on to give him multiple strikes that Yudo only barely manages to block. She is so overwhelming that he cartwheels to back away from her. Just as he thought he could rest, he sensed the woman behind him. Her strong slice leads Yudo to back away a few feet from her. Just keeping up with her attacks makes him feel exhausted. He marvels at how she was able to conquer magic towers without even dying once. He then remembers all the ways he dies and smiles as he realizes that he is the one who has the advantage. It makes him feel silly that he has only been defending up until now, since he is the one who has no fear of death. Fumi rushes towards him, only for her to be shocked as Yudo runs towards her too. Yudo's rush towards her catches Fumi off guard, so he notices that her movements have slowed down. He can clearly tell that he is the faster one between them at this moment. He strikes, only for the woman to evade and move beside him. The strength of her counter causes Yudo to be tossed into the air. Fumi admits that his offense was unexpected. Once Yudo gets down, he rushes towards her again. As he attacks, he tells her that he noticed that she hesitated. He dodges another of her attacks and tells her that he has only managed to stay in the battle because of her hesitation. He also tells her that he does not think it was because she was going easy on him. Rather, her instinct is telling her to slow down because she still needs to understand why he is moving strangely. He admits that he took advantage of this. He runs towards her while saying that his infinite revival makes him unfearful. They clash blades while declaring his intent to win. While Fumi avoids his strikes, she recalls how she knows about his infinite revival and how he can revive himself endlessly. Seeing his smiling face now, which shows no fear of death, makes her realize that his ability is fearsome. He then successfully lands a strike on his face. She warns him that her delay will not happen a second time. Despite how much it hurts, Yudo does not let himself fall in counters by nearing his sword to the opponent's face. He tells her that no matter how much it hurts, it is still nothing compared to dying. Fumi stands still while his sword is pointed at her face. Fumi smiles. She tells him that she now understands his power and admits his loss. She is surprised that the opponent who seems so strong before suddenly falls to the floor. Yudo tells her that he does not care anymore who won and that all he wants right now is some medical treatment. He's so weak right now, his soul is visibly exiting his body. Yuri and Mana run towards him and forcefully push his soul back. Once he is okay, he asks if he can now leave. Fumi says they still need to have an important conversation first. She goes on to explain that the power he showed during their match makes her realize that she needs to give him a special request. Yuri and Mana marvel at how even the chief of the bureau is giving him a special request. Fumi continues that he will have a cash reward once he is done. Yudo asks for the details of the request. Fumi informs him that there is a new tower, but the entrance to it right now is being sealed off by the bureau. She wants Yudo to enter the tower and gather information. The tower's name is Persephone. She admits that this request is tailored specifically for Yudo. Yudo asks why Fumi chose him when it is only normal for the bureau to investigate the new towers. She tells him that they already dispatched challengers to investigate. However, not a single one of the 10 people who entered returned. The news of this makes Yuri and Mana nervous. Fumi reports that the search team saw all the bodies near the entrance of the tower. Based on how they were found, it looked like they were trying their hardest to go outside, but they ran out of energy just before they got to the exit. It troubles Yudo that the bodies were found in the safe zone, where there should not be any monsters. Fumi confirms that they were found in the safe zone, and that the bodies had no signs of any monster attack on them. Once she received the report of this, she called back the search team immediately because of the danger. As of now, they have no idea of the what, the where, and the when of how they died. Yudo realizes that his infinite revival is needed to investigate. Fumi says that his ability will ensure that fewer of her people will die in the future. She asks him if he will accept the request for her sake. Yudo thinks about it and finds that he has no choice but to accept. On a different day, he heads to the Persephone Magic Tower. He enters through the safe zone where the bodies were found. He calms his nerves by slapping his face from both sides. He tells himself that he will identify that cause and relieve everyone's worries. He remembers how Yuri tried to stop him out of worry. He materializes his new sword, foes, and then starts his stroll. A few minutes later, he encounters a squad of undead skeleton warriors. He passes through them in a flash. A few seconds later, his sword slash's delayed effects make them explode. Yudo recognizes how light and easy his new sword is. Just as he thought he could rest, a purple fog appears. He tries to get away from it, but no slice can slow it down. His status window is open. He reads it and becomes worried. It turns out the window warns him that he is under the curse of Persephone, and that he will die in 120 seconds. He realizes that this is the cause of everyone's death, and that he is indeed the man needed to investigate this tower. Yudo recalls that leaving a magic tower means also canceling any conditions caused by it. He deduces that when the dispatcher challengers were afflicted by the curse, they frantically made their way into the exit. They reached the safety zone but still succumbed to the curse, one step away from the exit. Now he realizes why there were no signs of injuries or monster attacks on the bodies. Meanwhile, the fog of the curse moves away from him. This insults Yudo, who thinks the fog is underestimating him. He checks his status window and sees that it is warning him that he will die in 18 minutes. His inversion then takes effect, informing him that he will fully recover instead. He smiles as he feels his body heal up. He then runs to follow where the fog went until he sees the room ahead. He ponders if he should continue to chase it, but realizes he should, since he is the only challenger who can. He enters the room and sees that there is a spring of water at its center. He deduces that the room must be the source of the cursed fog. An energy beam suddenly fires at him, and he only dodges at the last second. Above him hovers a monster wearing dark robes. The system identifies it as the gatekeeper of the cursed spring. It fires more energy blasts at him, but he is agile enough to evade all of them. The frustrated monster screams, and with his scream, the fog spreads across the room like a tornado. The gatekeeper laughs and claps at his victory. However, out of the food, Yudo is still okay. The system overwhelms him with countless warnings that he has been cursed. Behind him appears an undead skeleton warrior. He vanquishes it with his sword, only to see that an army of them draws near. They surround him from all directions until one of them is able to wound him from behind. He voices that it hurts, then falls to the floor. The gatekeeper laughs. However, the very curse the monster brought on him also heals him. He gets back up and slays every undead warrior. He then jumps toward the gatekeeper and tells him that his curse is nothing but the highest quality medicine to him. Then he cuts the creature into 1,000,000 pieces. As he falls down, he realizes that the purple water spring before has changed into clean blue water. At the Tokyo headquarters, Fumi receives the report on the curse, killing the challengers. It's surprising as the existence of such an abnormal condition was unknown to them. She asks if there's anything they can do to counter the effects of the status ailment. Confidently smirking, Yudo tosses something to the chief, saying it's their best bet. Not even flinching, she catches the bottle containing a glowing blue liquid. After defeating the monster and purifying the spring, he was able to get his hands on the substance. It's holy water, which is able to dispel the curse and make the user immune for the next 600 seconds. If challengers use that before going in, even low rankers can advance without dying. He only looked verified until the third, but it seems there's a cursed spring on every floor. In other words, Persephone is a tower they have to conquer by securing the purified spring's holy water. As he concludes, she can't help but smile in satisfaction. If they understand the warnings and countermeasures, the tower can be opened to regular challengers. Since he's completed the request, she thanks and praises the brand new Dominator. He staggers in surprise as the director takes his reward out, stacking piles of cash on the table. In disbelief of the amount, he can't control his reaction. Misunderstanding, she asks if it isn't enough, when the issue is that it's much more than expected. In the streets, civilians looked at an odd figure who was hunched over. Yudo clung to a paper bag containing his massive combined earnings from Persephone and Hermes. While people pointed at his odd expression, he was nervous, not knowing what to spend it on. A few days passed. He prioritizes paying the debts he got from buying Infinite Revival, but a lot of reward money was left even after all that. As such, he went to luxury clothing and accessory stores. People were still staring at him, but now for a completely different reason. He emerged clad from head to toe in designer items, looking absolutely tacky. Facing the light of a new day, he says it has a different feel to it. Just then, he hears a couple of familiar voices nearby. His two friends were walking around, talking about challenging Persephone and inviting him to come with. Yudo panics as he sees them. He turns away and stays silent, praying that they don't see him wearing such a ridiculous outfit. Busy speaking to each other, they pass by without any worries, and he manages to let out a sigh of relief. The moment he lets his guard down, Mana turns to face his direction. He avoids her gaze, desperately spinning as she crept closer to look at the familiar figure. Realizing who it was, she flinched in a combination of shock and disgust. Unable to hide her grossed-out reaction, she cautiously calls his name, hoping she's wrong. He explains that he suddenly got a lot of money and had no idea what to spend it on. Yuri kindly compliments him, but even her considerate words don't feel good at all. Moving past it, they agree to set the strange outfit aside for now. The girls then invite him to take on Persephone together. Saying it's known to be a dangerous tower, he wonders why they're so interested in it. Magic stones that have been altered by the cursed fog should sell for a ton of money. According to the Management Bureau, explorers have already reached up to the 10th level. Most of all, Mana finds it unfair that he's the only one who got rich and insists that he helped them too. On the other hand, Yuri says she'd gladly go into any tower as long as he's there with them. He thinks about it and how there shouldn't be any big issues as long as they have holy water. With this, they all agreed to join the attack on Persephone. But before that, Yudo says he should go and change out of the luxury clothes first. Meanwhile, in the darkness of the magic tower, A challenger fell to the floor, crying and unable to move despite the holy water in his hands. A white Grim Reaper-like figure floated above him, and several others in the same condition. It turned, revealing a skull with eyes glowing with power. At the 10th floor of Persephone's magic tower, a skeleton monster screeched and clacked as it raised its blade to attack. Bringing it down, sparks fly when the steel clashes with another blade. Yudo held his weapon tight, not budging an inch despite the powerful swing. He looks at the enemy with cold eyes and cuts it down into multiple pieces. Just like that, severed bones rained down on the level 16 challenger. His friends clapped in amazement, acknowledging that he's grown much stronger than before. After slaying all kinds of monsters, it was only natural for his level to rise that much. That said, it won't affect his stats much, but being strong with a low level will incur suspicions. With this thought, he decides to raise it a bit more. Just then, a warning appeared saying the holy water will only last 1 more minute. They shouldn't get cursed since the level spring has already been purified, but Mana tosses them some bottles just to be safe. Although he takes it, Yudo turns away from his companions. If he consumes the liquid, its cleansing effects might curse him instead, due to the inversion skill. Their conversation was interrupted before, so he couldn't find the right time to tell them about it. As he tries to explain once more, a sinister figure, clad in white robes, suddenly appears above the women. He calls out to them in a panic, but it's already gotten its hands on Yuri. Before they could react properly, the monster swept her away, widening the gap drastically. Mana tried to call to her, but just watched as the holy water bottle fell to the ground, its contents unconsumed. Holding the girl by the neck, it turned with its scythe in the other hand, as if goading them to attack. It puts the blade just by her neck, and they notice a sinister fog engulfing the metal. Just then, a red light flashes on Yuri's face. It's the system warning that she's been afflicted with a curse and will lose her life in 2 minutes. They meet an enemy capable of cursing them, just as the holy water's effects were about to run out. In this situation, there was no way for the girl to consume it on her own. Mana moves first, dashing in to save her beloved friend from the enemy's grasp. She unleashes a flurry of attacks, aiming at multiple points on its body, but the enemy just spins its side to block each and every one. While she's surprised by the perfect defense, it counters and aims for her head. She reacts and blocks in time, but the force is strong enough to send her flying away. As they worry about each other, it's time for Yudo to take charge. Dashing forward, he tells them to leave it to him, and closes the gap in an instant. However, the enemy parries in time again. He gets increasingly frustrated, and lets loose a rush of attacks just like Mana did earlier. As if repeating the events from before, it completely blocks each attack, even from the stronger challenger. Unable to get through, they realize that the monster isn't just a random small fry. He jumps back to his team, wanting to recuperate for now. He wonders why it's still focusing on defense, despite being pretty strong itself. Mana insists on moving faster, as the curse will destroy Yuri's body in 90 seconds. The captive screams and struggles, begging to be released from its clutches. Turning to the desperate girl, the enemy stared and, to their surprise, laughed. The room echoed as it let out a screeching cackle, relishing in their hopelessness. Now they were against the Soul Reaper. Hearing it laugh maniacally, Yudo finally understands the situation they're in. The enemy waits until the holy water wears off, and savors the fear and desperation of its targets. His eyes seethed with anger, as he told the monster not to underestimate him. He charged in like before, cursing the enemy and filled with hatred for its disgusting methods. Yudo strikes again, letting his hate and anger fuel the power behind his blows. Successfully blocking again, the monster laughs in his face, mocking the challenger. It pushes him away for now and brings its captive farther away from her teammates. The pair rush to chase it down, moving fast along the corridors of the dark dungeon. Upon turning a corner, their eyes grew in surprise, realizing their mistake. In a huge hall, an army of skeleton soldiers was waiting, commanded by the Reaper. It orders its subjects to attack after having successfully lured the targets into the trap. Noticing Mana's silence, he asks if he's scared after everything that's happened. She only smiles and raises her blades, ready for what's to come. Rather than being afraid, what she's feeling is more like getting fired up. A skeleton approaches, but is hacked to pieces by her daggers in an instant. Although sweating from exhaustion, the two feign resilience, smiling as they insist that they're keeping up well. They charged in together, moving past the army and heading straight for the Reaper. Tearing through everything in front of them, they failed to notice an archer aiming at them from far behind. Pulling the bow tight, they release and let the arrows fly at the targets. Some reached Mana and were inches away from piercing through her head. She raised her arms despite knowing it'd be too late, but her partner fortunately parried them away in time. Confirming that he's okay, he tracks time, saying there's only a minute left until the curse kills Yuri. The pair gets more desperate as the situation grows direr by the second. Letting his power overflow, Yudo declares that he'll open up a path. He dashed forward, raising the group of enemies that stood in his way. Just then, an item drops. It's a ring with a red crystal called the Corpse Grudge, which afflicts the user with death every 5 seconds. He laughs at the equipment with no merit, saying its existence should be considered harassment. Something like that would never be equipped by ordinary challengers, but he's from what people would consider ordinary. The ring appears on his finger, and it activates as soon as it's equipped. The Corpse Grudge takes effect, and will grant him death in 5 seconds. However, his inversion skill should reverse this debuff, and instead fully heal him when it elapses. In other words, there's no need for him to worry about defending. The young man, now braver and more reckless than ever, sped towards his target. Instead of killing the skeletons, he jumps over them and reaches the Reaper perfectly. Raising his blade, he sets out to show them the special ability of his unique item, 7-Strike Assault. Crimson lights, reminiscent of red flowers, flash throughout the hall. With each strike, the attack power increases. But if the strikes are interrupted, the skill fails, and there's a long cooldown before he can use it again. Normally, finding the timing is difficult. The enemy swings down and cuts through his bones to sever his arm. Seeing the damage, the ladies panic. It hurts like nothing before, but the ring debuff and inversion takes effect, reattaching his arm instantly and allowing him to continue with his skills barrage. With the ability to heal every 5 seconds, he can keep attacking without worrying about being interrupted. The empowered strike sends the enemy flying, and he dashes right into follow-up. This time, his entire torso gets cut in half, but it's timed so perfectly that he's brought back to full health in the same instant. He starts off by cutting the Reaper's arm and saving Yuri from its clutches. Meeting the monster's terrified eyes, he says the next hit will be the last and his most powerful. Yudo grits his teeth and grips foes tight. The chain bloom finishes, and the entire room erupts in a blinding and beautiful flash of flower petals. Engulfed in the Yudo's blooming strikes, the Reaper screeches with its defeat and soon dissipates into nothingness. Yuri is released from its clutches and plummets to the ground, still unconscious. Fortunately, the young man moves fast and catches her gently in his arms. She panics upon realizing that she was cradled in his embrace, but he just smiles warmly, glad that his friend was alive and well. That said, they seem to be forgetting about the curse that was seconds away from seeping into her system. Retrieving the holy water, they hurriedly pour it over her body to remove the curse. It's still difficult to believe that a monster was smart enough to aim for the exact moment it wore off. Just then, countless red windows flashed in Yudo's face. They were all death debuffs of the corpse ring, piled up after being ignored for a while. While he wonders how long it's going to keep going, the red crystal suddenly cracks, letting the dark energy trapped in it burst out. Panic starts to set in since it didn't seem like good news at all. He tried calling to his friends, but was stuck in a little bubble of his own, worried that it'll explode. The young man tries and fails to take it off, and the ring suddenly shines brightly. The theatrics made him brace his body, expecting something huge to happen, but the light simply died down. Its activation limit has been reached, and as such, it has turned into a corroded ring. Surprised by the light, the ladies finally turn to see what was going on. Brushing it off for now, he successfully unequips the item, and wonders what they're going to do next. Since Yuri had a pretty tough time today, Mana suggests heading back after collecting the magic stones. Feeling guilty, despite their assurance that it isn't her fault, the mage decides to at least do her best and help gather all the magic stones. They cheer her on for a few minutes, showering the girl with praises. However, this goes on for a few tiresome hours, and she just wouldn't stop slaying lesser monsters. The conquest of Persephone continued smoothly, and the large number of challengers entering daily sped the process up. In a week, a report arrived that the 30th floor boss room had been discovered. However, there was one problem. Back in the headquarters, Yudo sat alone, silently sipping on his coffee. Putting it down as he was deep in thought, he suddenly hears a couple of people talking about the tower. Apparently, the door to the boss room is sealed and nobody is able to get inside. Familiar voices called to him, thanking him for waiting. It was Mana and Yuri, who had come for their plans to investigate Persephone's tower. That said, he says they still haven't figured out a way to break through the seal. Suddenly smirking with confidence, they say an acquaintance found a hint on the top floor. He reacts loudly as it's huge news, but is shushed to keep people from noticing. Whispering, they say the hint is just a short phrase. As proof of many deaths, raise the proof of decay. Their expressions are dead serious, but neither knows what the phrase actually means. While their brains fall short this time, Yuri chimes in, saying she also came across some information. It looks like several challengers of the tower received a ring with the death effect on them. Remembering the corpse grudge from last week, they confirmed that he has something like that too. Apparently, A person can only receive one of those, and people think it might be some kind of key for the boss room. Come to think of it, he never received another ring, despite slaying countless more enemies in the tower. Things click as he remembers the hint phrase and the countless death alerts he faced before. With this, Yudo finally solves the puzzle. Yuri was still lost in thought, going on about how the keys weren't working for others, when he suddenly stood up with a determined urgency. He walks away first. Without turning back, he says they're heading to Persephone. After all, only his ring is the true key that can open the boss room on the 30th floor. Yudo arrogantly claimed to have the answer and acted like a cool person. That said, he had no assurance he was right, and would be embarrassed if he was actually wrong. He can already imagine his friends punishing him for acting so haughty. While imagining their disdainful eyes, Yuri spoke, asking why he's so confident that his ring is the true key. As such, he explains how the item changed into something else after hitting a death limit. They're shocked to hear that he actually activated the death effect, as no sane person would. Since he has infinite revival, he was being reckless again, against his promise to them. That said, he only ever used inversion, but brushes it off as essentially being ineffective on him. Now there's no information after it changed. This is where the hint comes in. The evidence of decay and proof of many deaths is indicating exactly what happened to his ring. With the logic reasonable and the mystery solved, they praise their friend, making him turn away in embarrassment. Facing away, he hides his nervousness, blushing and thinking that he said too much. Now all he can do is believe in the ring and hope that it doesn't prove him wrong. Whether he becomes a laughingstock or not is entirely dependent on it. The trio reaches the boss room soon enough, and Mana pushes as hard as she can. As expected, it doesn't budge an inch, just like all the other challengers said. Exhausted, she turns to Yudo, saying it's all up to him and his precious accessory. Calming himself down, the young man nervously approached the gate. Heating his ring up like a lucky charm, he raises his hand, commanding the door to open at the beckoning of its key. However, an awkward moment silently passes, as nothing happens. He feels smaller and smaller by the second, and the realization that he was wrong hits. Just as he was losing hope, the crystal suddenly glowed brightly, along with the entire door itself. With this, the entrance opened. Yudo sighs in relief, hiding his tears and delighted that he turned out to be correct. Come to think of it, they were so focused on whether or not it would open, that they forgot about the boss up ahead. To make things worse, they were on the 30th level, so the monster should be much stronger than the one they defeated in Hermes. Turning and calling to his friends, he suggests taking a moment to regroup and plan. However, he belatedly senses the ominous hand reaching out to him. No one reacts in time to stop the young man from being pulled inside the boss room. The hand tosses him to the middle of the area, where he painfully tumbles and crashes. For the first time in a while, Yudo trembles in fear. He tells the ladies not to come inside, but it's too late as they've already stepped forward. The door closed with a resounding thud, and a magic circle sealed them all inside. Just leaving after opening the door is not allowed. A large blue portal appeared in front of them, brimming with power. There, a haunting figure with long hair and dark robes emerged. The three summoned their weapons, preparing for what was coming next. On the other hand, the boss, leaning on its cane, tapped the wood on the floor. The portal disappeared, and they were left alone in the room with the being enveloped in power. Gathering energy into its body, it lets out an ear-piercing shriek, loud enough that its sound waves pushed the challengers back. They were locked inside, and left with no choice but to take on the consequences for opening the door. The boss of the Persephone Magic Tower is the Elder Bone Priest. Speaking in an indecipherable language, it casts a spell and sends blue flames at the challengers. From the flames, countless skeleton warriors march forward, brimming with power unlike the others below. Given the summoning ability, they'll be at a disadvantage if they don't end the battle fast. Ready to do just that, Yudo grips his sword tight and dashes in to make the first move. Ignoring the useless ones, he appears right above the boss and aims to take it out at once. He dives down and swings his blade, but a hard barrier blocks him completely. His eyes widen in surprise as it meets the Elder's threatening gaze. A huge explosion sends the young man flying back to where he came from. While he remains unharmed, the enemy's flawless defense is going to be a huge problem. Just then, a skeleton sneaks up and ambushes him from behind. While he manages to defend one attack, he fails to block the other and is impaled in the chest. He doesn't die right away, and instead turns to see a couple more enemies coming with their blades raised. The first death comes, granting him an increase in his defense stat. He respawns right behind a skeleton, taking the opportunity to launch a surprise attack. Against their expectations, the common monster defends perfectly with an unbreakable guard. Trying harder, Yudo grits his teeth and pushes as hard as he can, acknowledging its strength. Suddenly, he's locked in an intense skirmish against the skeleton that's on a completely different level. compared to the ones before. Dealing with one was already difficult, yet the elder was able to summon entire legions. While he wondered how he was going to handle it, a couple of enemies grabbed his arms, opened his guard, and pushed him flat on the floor. He struggled as hard as possible, but could not do anything as he was forced defenseless in front of the boss. It looked at him for a moment but turned its head at the commotion nearby. There, huge bursts of magic blasted a bunch of skeletons. It was coming from his two comrades, who were surrounded and also on their last legs. Yuri summons a powerful cannon of water. Hitting a target, it enlarged and raged into a powerful torrent. For just a second, the girl feels victorious, but her face drops as she sees the scene before her. There, the skeletons engulfed in her magic stood tall, wet but completely unharmed. Similarly, Mana was struggling against a single skeleton soldier. The two are cornered, and they don't know how to get out of the predicament. Yuto panics, pushing and pulling to free himself as he sees his friends' lives at risk. He freezes for a while, seeing the elder raise its sharp cane above him. Bringing it down, the boss mercilessly severs the challenger's right arm. It takes a moment for the pain to register, but he soon screams in agony, falling back and rolling in misery. The huge enemy seemed to chuckle, as its underlings held the young man still again. They pulled on his body, straining against his thrashing limbs. His left leg comes off next, cut cleanly off, but not dealing enough damage to take his life. The elder smiled, enjoying and relishing in his desperate cries, while it chipped away at his body. Falling to the ground, he silently begs them to stop. Bony hands gripped his body, and the skeleton warriors crowded him, biting and tearing his flesh off piece by piece. His tormented screams filled the room, echoing and ringing as they continued to eat away. Yuto is still breathing after all that, as if intentionally left alive to maximize the trauma he'll suffer from. Breathing raggedly, his eyes began to close, and the last thing he saw was the elder's staff. Even then, he knew it was going to haunt him on the other side. With this, he finally dies. The boss, delighted with what it did, raised its arms and cackled with satisfaction. Yuto's eyes slowly opened, and the first thing he saw was the image of the elder priest. He jolts up in shock and breathes hard, remembering how he was tortured, dismembered piece by piece. Checking on his arms, he sees both there, shaking in fear and pain. The memory is too much to bear, and he can't get the traumatic experience out of his head. He clings to his face as if anchoring himself to the world. His final moment flashed by, along with all the suffering that brought it on. Unable to hold it in anymore, the poor challenger wailed in agony, endlessly weeping as the thoughts were burned into his brain. After a long while, he manages to calm down, but his face is completely devoid of life. The system screen before him flashed. If he doesn't go back, and if he fails there'd be no one to save Yuri and Mana. He has to hurry up, revive, and defeat the boss to rescue his two friends. Standing up, he reminds himself that he has to forget the fear for now. He knew it better than anyone, but he couldn't, for the life of him and his comrades, stop himself from trembling. There were only 7 seconds before revival, and he had to quickly designate a respawn point. The instruction plays and plays in his head, and the infinite lives skill finally brings him back. The battle is still ongoing, and he sees the two ladies surrounded, desperate to somehow survive. Yuto was going to call to him, but as the elder turned to him, his entire body froze, except for the obvious shaking in his limbs. Slowly, his hand lowered while the skeletons closed in on them. He couldn't do anything, and he was back to being a pathetic little challenger. The young man fails to even move his body, despite his friends cowering in each other's arms as death approaches. Tears fell, believing they were all done for. Just then, the seal on the door hummed with power and burst into flames. A huge explosion behind him rocks the room. Turning back, he sees a lone man entering through the gigantic hole he blasted the door open with. The man, Kagu, had heard that nobody could enter the boss room, so he tried to force it open. Little did he expect that there would already be someone fighting inside. Quickly scanning the area, he sees the ladies in trouble, the boss at full strength, and a lone young man crying in the middle of it all. The intruder stretches his neck, recognizing that the situation doesn't seem to be favorable in any way. The skeletons jumped in to attack Yuto. Before he could even react, the man appeared between them in an instant, swinging his blade and taking them out. He offers the youngster a bit of help. Rest assured, since the Dominator King Kagu was there, nobody was going to die anymore. The boy thinks about the title he just mentioned. It's a heroic name, reserved for a chosen few, who have conquered magic towers with more than 100 floors. Deciding to talk about the details later, the Dominator says he'll conquer Persephone first. With a cheeky expression, he activates his unique sword, engulfing it in flames. As soon as he said its name, a huge and powerful blast consumed them all. The tornado of burning fire spun around them, raising the room and turning the skeletons to ash. Yuto watched in amazement, unable to believe the power he was witnessing. Annoyed but also fearing for its life, The elder jumped to the ceiling and away from the blaze. Unfortunately for it, Kagu had no intention of letting it escape and was already targeting it from above. It cast its shield once more, but the Dominator King's entire being overflowed with power. He swung down, clashing with the barrier and sending sparks flying throughout the area. Just then, the defense cracks and soon explodes. The fight is so intense that its shockwaves force the ordinary challengers to brace themselves. Kagu stood still in the middle of it all, unmoving as if baiting the enemy. It works, and the elder appears behind him, roaring in anger. However, he was already prepared for it, so a quick punch sends it crashing back. Turning around, he calls to the young man and graciously serves him the finishing blow on a silver platter. Yudo is confused, not understanding the offer. While Kagu doesn't know what he went through there, his face looks terrible. Gazing sternly, the king advises him against carrying the experience strangely and settle it with his own hands. Yudo finally breathes calmly. Gripping his blade tight, he expresses his sincerest gratitude. The elder sees him and charges in, wanting to get rid of the weaker opponent first. With clear eyes, the challenger sends it back. Thanks to their savior, he feels like he can fight again. Kagu can see that Yudo has reconquered his trauma. He grabs Yudo by the shoulder and congratulates him for becoming the dominator of the Tower of Persephone. Yudo is not comfortable with this, citing that he only delivered the final blow, and that it is Kagu who is the real dominator of the tower. Kagu does not care, especially since a window opens up that informs Yudo that he gets all the rewards. Yudo offers to take everything, but Kagu does not want it. He suggests that his party use the reward for all of them to get stronger. He sees Yudo, Yuri, and Mana so happy to survive their ordeal, and it makes Kagu smile. He tells the trio that he is not short on money and is already satisfied with his signature sword. All he wants from Yudo is for him to take a peek at the unique weapon he received. Yudo looks at his weapon storage window and sees that his new weapon is a magic staff. He presses the staff icon and it materializes in front of them. They marvel that they are looking at the rare staff known as Aqua. Kagu asks if Yudo is good with magic. Yudo says he is not, so he offers the staff to Yuri instead. Yuri is hesitant to take it. She tells him that she does not feel like she deserves to take it from him. She explains that she and Mana have discussed that they have not been any help in conquering the tower, nor were they in their last tower. It pains her to say that they think that they are just a burden to Yudo. Mana interjects that they have decided that they should not have formed a party with him in the first place. Yudo does not like where this is going and so justifies that even he was not much help in the boss fight and had to rely on Kagu. While sweating, he tells the girls that he was only able to protect them because of him. His words are like a dagger in Mana's heart. She makes him notice that his words prove that he knows that they are just objects to protect. Yudo makes the excuse that he did not mean it in a bad way. He can tell that he feels far apart from the two girls, despite them being inches away from him. Mana tell him that their new resolve is to get stronger. Yuri follows up by saying that they have to tackle the Tower of Persephone by themselves to do so. They announce that once they catch up to him, they will return to him as his party mates. Yuri insists that he should keep the staff until that moment happens. Yudo suddenly tosses her the staff. He explains that trying to get stronger is all the more reason she should take the staff. Yuri is about to thank him, only for status windows to suddenly open around them. It informs them that the tower will disappear in 10 seconds. As a bright light engulfs them, Yudo tells his teammates goodbye. Once they reappear in the streets, Kagu tells Yudo that they said farewell maturely. Yudo does not agree, since he is still wiping his tears from the loneliness he has right now. Kagu suggests that if he feels like passing some time, then he hang out with him. Kagu explains that he has been called by the chief of the Tokyo Bureau, even if he is active in the central region. He believes that if he had been called all the way to Tokyo, it must mean he is about to get into something serious. He says that he only stopped by the Tower of Persephone to kill time before the meeting and that it was only a matter of chance that he found him. Later they walk together. Yudo asks why he bothered so much for someone like him. He knows that since he did not activate the infinite revival in front of Kagu, he should not have a reason to think that he is anything special. Kagu replies that he is interested in him because Fumi told him that Yudo is the promising dominator of the next generation. It shocked Yudo that the chief said something so highly like that. Kagu recalls how shaken up Yudo looked during the boss fight and thought the chief must have been mistaken. Yudo thinks his impression of him is right since he only sees himself as just a regular guy. Kagu assures him that he does not need to worry about it since he can always put in more effort next time. Since they still have time before the appointment, Kagu suggests that they go shopping to relax. He brags about how a dominator king like him can teach him about smart ways to use money. Yudo's eyes sparkle at the once-in-a-lifetime chance to learn about money from the dominator king himself. In his eyes, Kagu looks like a god. Later, the two head to the bureau headquarters looking tacky in new clothes. Fumi looks at them and teases them by asking who they are. This simple comment sets Yudo off. Kagu admits to his new friend that having the title of Dominator King feels empty since he does not have any fashion sense. Fumi tells Yudo his new clothes look messy. It ticks the man off even more that he points at Fumi and accuses her of looking like someone who also knows nothing about fashion. She finds his comment cringy. Fumi grabs a magazine from her cabinet and shows them that she is the cover girl wearing fashionable clothing. She points to the words written on it that state that she is known as one of the most fashionably trendy people around. Instantly, Yudo goes to his knees to apologize to her. His actions make Kagu laugh. He does not beat around the bush and asks Fumi why she called him. Fumi explains that the Bureau is about to carry out a large-scale operation. She elaborates that they will conquer the greatest magic tower, Zeus. Since the death toll has been rising in that tower, the Bureau can no longer overlook the tower. The resources gathered in the mission will be distributed to all volunteers participating in the operation, and all volunteers' skills will be considered for making strategic plays. She warns him that the danger of Zeus dwarfs the danger of every tower in the world. She expects that there will be many casualties, but she wants to recruit him to the front line so as to reduce the number even slightly. She determines that she needs the Dominator who conquered the magic tower Hephaestus in the central region. Kagu agrees, knowing his involvement is needed to save lives. Meanwhile, Yudo feels awkward since he has nothing to contribute to the discussion. This changes as Kagu's only condition for accepting the quest is that he can bring Yudo along. Fumi agrees to his terms, making Yudo feel like his agency has been taken away from him. Kagu tells his new partner that he will be counting on him, making the man get into a cold sweat. Yudo screams, and it can be heard throughout the building. Kagu and Yudo head to the Tower of Proteus. There they are ready to level up. Days before, Fumi told them that they still had time before their mission to the Tower of Zeus, so Kagu asked him if she could suggest any tower that would be perfect for leveling up. He says that he needs it so he can train Yudo before their big mission. Yudo asked if he could choose not to participate in the mission, but Kagu only laughed at him. He asked instead why he wanted him along. Kagu responded that he wants him to get stronger, confusing the lad. Fumi suggests to them to take on the magic Tower of Proteus if they want to get stronger. She goes on to say that while the tower does not have any unique features, the monsters there are at a high level. She also informed them that a large-scale mining area has been found there, making it a popular spot for challengers. Kagu thought about it and agreed on the spot. He surprised Kagu when he told Yudo that their aim was for him to fight the boss there. Back in the present, the duo are in an area in Proteus, facing a monster that looks like a knight carrying a lance. Kagu tells Yudo that he needs to fight it alone so he can see his limits. Yudo is reluctant, but he still charges towards the enemy. The knight attacks, and while it scratches his cheek, it does not slow down his momentum, and he manages to hit the monster. Still, the knight can fight back. Yudo sees an opening and gets to hit it with a finishing slice. The knight gets to its knees, yet Kagu warns Yudo that it is still not over. Despite being on its knees, the knight throws its lance at his enemy. Kagu is tempted to help Yudo, but knows he needs to stand back to get to see what he is capable of. He apologizes, knowing he is about to die. The lance hits Yudo directly in his chest. The force of the throw is so hard that it also lifts Yudo upwards. He falls to the ground, looking lifeless. Just as the knight thought it was over, Yudo suddenly respawns inches from him and is so angry that he cuts off its right arm. Kagu sees that infinite revival is the real deal and that Yudo can never die. It convinces him that his ability is what makes him the perfect candidate to become his partner. The knight is down, so Yudo tells it to yield. Light suddenly appears where the arm of the knight once was, and it grows into a sword for an arm that stabs Yudo in the chest again. The system window tells Yudo he has died and will get a permanent debuff, only for his inversion to take effect and buff his stats instead. He respawns on the battlefield again, angry that the monster pierced his heart twice. He attacks the knight with the declaration that he will never forgive the creature. Yudo and the knight are evenly matched in their crossing of blades. It frustrates the man that he can't give the creature a decisive blow. Suddenly, he senses something coming from the distance. It is a lance, and he dodges it just as it is about to hit him. It turns out that another knight has appeared, carrying the same sword arm as the first one. Unbeknownst to Yudo, two more lances are dropping over him from above. He is only lucky that both lances did not hit him. He then sees that two more knights with sword arms appear. He finds himself with no way out as the four knights surround him from all directions. He tries his hardest to block and parry their moves. He counters back, yet they evade. As time goes by, their moves get harder and harder to evade, and he fears that it will only be a matter of time until he dies. Just as he thinks this, their blades near his eyes. Kagu realizes that it is time for him to enter the fight and blocks the knights' attacks before they reach Yudo. He hits all of them, sending them flying to the rocky walls with a bang. Kagu compliments Yudo for the effort he has made so far, but tells him that it is his turn now to show him his power. As the knights come back, Kagu materializes flames that obliterate the creatures. Kagu tells Yudo that he wanted to do more, but the enemies evaporated in a single hit. Yudo hates that he is complaining when he is so strong. Kagu goes on to tell him that it saddens him that he did not get to show off how desperate he was to cling to his life while fighting like he was. This insults Yudo, who tells him that he only did that because he had no choice. It leads the two to get into a heated argument. It ends as Kagu accepts that there will be more chances to show off his strength. Yudo asks what they need to do now. Kagu answers that they need to go to the magic stone mining area up ahead. Since magic stones attract monsters, he explains that many strong monsters appear there. Yudo reviews that their mission is to find monsters and to take them down. Meanwhile, in the mining area with rocky walls filled with crystallized magic stones, many challengers are there trying to remove them with pickaxes. Among them is a trio of women looking like they are having a good time talking to each other. Unbeknownst to all of them, among the rocky landscape is a rock monster who blends into the background. Now, its glowing red eyes open up as it awakens. Yudo marvels at how many magic stones there are in the mining area. He tells Kagu that he has never seen a place like it at any other magic tower before. He recalls how much money he had the last time he sold magic stones. It gives him the idea that he will become extremely rich if he sells all the magic stones in the mine. He forgets about their monster hunting objective and would rather just mine stones. Kagu makes him realize that if it is as simple as he says it is, then there should be more people than the countable ones in the mine right now. Yudo realizes that he is right. Kagu explains that in such a place where so many magic stones are clustered together, their individual power gets lowered because they compete for the surrounding magic power. This is the reason he says that their quality is not that good. He warns Yudo that the stone here will not give him much money, since there are still people who are willing to mine them. The Management Bureau maintains the environment and has placed challengers to defend it. The demand for the site, he says, is that it is a place where people can earn money safely. Yudo sees that the trio of girls are enjoying their mining of magic stones. They remind him of how he used to enjoy his time with Yuri and Mana, and it makes him lonely. Kagu suddenly puts his arm on his shoulder and asks if he is staring at the girls because he has a crush on one of them and gets excited to know which one. Yudo denies his accusation, so Kagu tells him that he is boring. However, it gives him the idea to ask which girl he likes from his previous party. Somewhere else, Yuri suddenly becomes tense. Koji admits that the two ladies he was hanging out with before were both cute. He asks again which one he likes or if he likes someone else like Fumi. Elsewhere, Yuri is paranoid that something is happening out there beyond her control. Yudo takes his hands off him and tells him that he came for training, not to talk about romance. Kagu points at him with judging eyes and calls him a tsundere, so Yudo screams at him to shut up. Meanwhile, the trio of girls has spotted a part of the mine that is filled with bigger crystals than the rest. One of them starts mining by hitting it with their pickaxe. The stones there are so hard that they hit the woman's hand. As they wonder why this spot is harder than the rest, glowing red eyes appear from the spot they just hit, revealing that it is just a camouflaged monster. The rock monster rises, scaring the girls. They run away, but the creature chases after them. It simply sits down, and it causes tremors that put everyone in the area off balance. The creature starts to levitate its crystals and shape them into sharp spikes. It aims its spikes at the women and then projects them at them, much to their fear. Yudo quickly gets in front of them and blocks all the crystals with his sword. He tells the girls that this is their chance to run away. The girl seizes the chance to escape. Despite his attempt to look cool, he finds that his body gets filled with sharp crystals, leading to him lying on the ground. He tells himself that as long as he saves someone, dying is not a big thing. He wishes for the day that he can be as cool as Kagu when it comes to saving people. As the monster nears him, it is about to step on him with its giant foot. Yudo reflects on how he originally wanted to be like Kagu after conquering the magic towers. He would never have to worry about money again, but then he was asked what was next in life after that, and he had no idea what to say. However, seeing Kagu save them all at Persephone made him realize that he wanted to be a challenger who saved others in a cool way. All these thoughts course through his mind before he falls dead due to the numerous crystal shards that have pierced his body. The monster then moves to crush Yudo's lifeless body, as we see on the system window that a permanent debuff of 34 intelligence will be applied as a death penalty. His inversion skill then turns it into a plus 34 intelligence. Yudo revives the memories still fresh in his mind and now filled with an intense desire to reach his ideal. He knows he still has a way to go, but is now filled with assurance as he charges right at the monster. He leaps forward and delivers a powerful blow on the beast's rocky exterior. However, it is too hard for him to cut through. He jumps back and wonders how he will be able to penetrate it with his sword. he suddenly remembers Kagu and wonders where he is. Nearby, the cool challenger is busy guiding the others to safety. Two guards tell him that they can't just run away from their duty. He replies that the monster is strong but that this partner will be able to handle it. Yudo looks a bit surprised to hear that as the monster then fires another round of crystal projectiles at him. He parries some with his sword and then runs frantically to avoid the others. Kagu screams to get Yudo's attention and then asks if the young challenger has any intelligence. Yudo's first reaction is anger as he thinks he is being mocked. Kagu, however, simply laughs and says he is not referring to being smart but to the INT status. Yudo continues to move defensively as Doku explains that if he has a decent int number, then he should try to observe carefully. The secret to its hardness will then become visible. Doku then waves goodbye, saying he is leaving the fight to him, while a slightly annoyed Yudo mutters that it is quite irresponsible. INT is a status referred to handling magic or magical power. A higher number will allow one to use more powerful magic. Yudo's INT has increased, but it is still not enough to use spells. Still, he checks the screen and sees that general skills called Magic Sensing and Magic Manipulation are now available. Magic Sensing makes it easier to perceive magic in the area, while Magic Manipulation allows one to consolidate the surrounding magical power. Yudo is a bit surprised to see this, but then remembers that he did gain some INT during his last death. He smiles and immediately uses Magic Sensing 1. This allows him to see an unstable purple aura around the monster. The image is unstable, so he focuses more on increasing the skill's effectiveness. He is now able to see that the monster is protecting its entire body with a shell of magic. Now he knows why its skin exterior was unusually hard. The enemy then focuses its magic, and 3 balls of energy appear above it. Yudo sees them getting bigger as the magical energy gathers together. He then realizes he is in trouble as powerful magical blasts appear from all 3 balls. The young challenger is thrown back into the wall by the impact. He gets up slowly, looking a bit forlorn. Seeing the magic will mean nothing if he can't defeat the monster. He then notices that the magical shell has become unstable due to the monster focusing its magic on attacking him. Yudo smiles as he realizes this is the opening he has been looking for. He immediately gets up and rushes at the monster. He avoids the enemy attacks and looks confident as he thinks about how he will strip away the magical shell by delivering a big attack. Yudo spots the crack in the defensive shell, which has become temporarily unstable. Thus, if he strikes it with an immense amount of magic power, he should be able to destroy the shell. Before that, he must first destroy the magic stones, and he slices some that are near him. The monster, meanwhile, continues to gather crystal shards and hurl them at our hero. Yudo moves with lightning speed, zigzagging around the room, avoiding all of the monster's attacks. He looks up and sees more crystals about to rain down on him. However, he is once again able to deftly avoid them all while slashing the magic stones in the room. He then turns around and sees that the room has become filled with dust. However, the monster is not there. He is stunned as he realizes it stealthily moved behind him to jump at him in an attempt to crush him with its body. He is able to leap out of the way just in the nick of time, and he quickly casts Magic Manipulation 1. This draws all the droplets of magical energy around him. The skill can only gather magic and not produce it. The droplets all head to Yudo, where they are gathered in his hands. He then takes this power and transfers it to his sword, which becomes imbued with a blue hue. He is confident this will be enough to break the shell, and he lunges forward with all he has got. He strikes the monster's magical shell, but is only able to create a tiny tear. Yudo is not worried, though, as he has a trump card. He positions his sword and then activates the unique skill Chainburst. The monster fires more projectiles, but he parries them easily. Chainburst is a 7-hit attack where each hit gets stronger. He rushes forward, planning to add magical power to the final attack, which he will unleash with all his might. The monster uses the magic beam attack again. Yudo is ready and dodges the blast. He is in no rush as the more magic is fired, the more magic power he will be able to gather in his sword. Sensing it is enough, he jumps right at the monster's face, which is now starting to look frightened. It starts firing at him desperately, but none of them connect. Yudo's eyes are glowing as he knows the monster will not be able to withstand this attack. There is an immense surge of magical energy, and the last strike undergoes a transformation symbolized by blooming flowers. Kagu is watching the fight and is highly impressed at what Yudo is doing. The young Death Defeer is engulfed by a bright magical aura as he plans to destroy the core and shell at the same time. The impact of his sword on the monster's skin creates a huge explosion of magical energy. The monster's defenses are completely broken, and the slash slices it right in the middle. This immediately causes it to blow up in a fiery blast, which sends Yudo flying. He falls to the ground exhausted. A shadow covers him, and he opens his eyes to see Kagu proudly smiling at him. Yudo also cracks a smile of relief as they both do a thumbs up sign. He asks if everyone is okay, which Kagu confirms. Yudo is pleased to hear this as he waves at the three girls, who now look even more in love with him. Out of nowhere, something causes a huge impact on the walls behind him. He turns around and is surprised to see what looks like a robotic beast looking at him. Kagu screams at Yudo out of concern, while the three girls look terrified. Yudo, though, was able to jump back out of danger. He turns around to ascertain the situation and sees a giant serpent with metal skin in front of him called the Steel Serpent. He sees the giant hole in the wall and notes that monsters with such abilities are quite rare. It is so unusual that this is a completely abnormal situation. He grips the handle of his sword in preparation. The monster then thrashes around the room and heads right for Kagu with an open mouth. The veteran challenger raises his big broadsword and blocks the monster's mouth. He is pretty impressed with the beast, and he swings his sword, pushing it back. He realizes he needs to get serious, or he will get eaten. He creates a pillar of fire and plans to control the area with scorching heat. He then causes the flames to engulf the monster. Yudo shields his eyes and then is surprised to see that the flames have no effect on the beast. Kagu notes that the steel outer shell probably has a high fire resistance. He thus has no option but to use sheer physical power to defeat it. He charges at the steel serpent, which lets out a loud, angry yell before lunging at Kagu like a snake. It strikes the ground, creating an explosion of dust, but Kagu is able to leap out of the way. He swings his large sword downward, striking the monster's steel exterior. The serpent now lunges upwards, its mouth wide open, but Kagu easily avoids being bitten while taunting the monster. An area of its body then opens up. Kagu sees this and is now on high alert. Multiple long tentacle claws come out. This causes the veteran challenger to sweat a bit as four massive claws make their way towards him. He places his broadsword in front of his body in a defensive position. Just then, Yudo appears and pushes Kagu out of harm's way. He had no idea the young challenger would do this, and he shouts in concern as a claw heads straight at Yudo and passes right through him, rupturing his entire middle section. There is darkness for a moment, and Yudo feels the pain of the attack, but he materializes again right in front of the monster's face. Dying in that position allowed him to get close. He now targets the monster's eyes. He successfully drives his sword right into one of the eyes, causing the steel serpent to scream in pain. Yudo falls to the ground after this attack, but Kagu catches him in midair, and the two of them land safely. Kagu apologizes for letting him die, but Yudo says not to worry about it. However, the fight is not over as the monster is still alive. It strikes the walls and the floor of the room in a fit of rage, and then moves to attack the two challengers once more. However, the monster is blocked by an invincible barrier. Yudo is amazed as he learns that this is what happens when a monster tries to enter a safe area. The beast recovers its senses and then seems to be deep in thought about what to do next. Yudo wonders what it is up to. He learns soon enough as the steel serpent burrows down into the ground and disappears underneath. Kagu wonders if it intends to go to one of the lower floors. Yudo is concerned upon hearing this, since monsters usually get stronger the higher you get on the magic tower. Lower level challengers would be no match if a monster like the steel serpent were to attack them. The two of them then agree that they cannot let the monster roam free on the lower floors, or it will result in massive consequences. Yudo looks down at the massive hole that the monster made when it burrowed down. It looks like it was able to actually move between floors. Each floor's entryway has a safe zone, so monsters are usually unable to leave their areas. However, there have been cases where monsters were able to do it using some method or ability. Doku states that the snake monster is likely one of those anomalies. Such monsters are placed in a special category by the Management Bureau and handled appropriately. This category is called errors. Doku intones gravely. Yudo is stunned since he is hearing this information for the very first time. Kagu is not surprised since such details are only shared with a selected number of high-level explorers. He turns around and tells Yudo that they need to head back and report the situation to the Management Bureau immediately. They both move towards the exit when Yudo notices the three girls staring at him and looking quite scared. They say that they just saw him die. Yudo remembers that they all saw what happened with the monster, so he makes an excuse, stating that what they saw was simply an illusion. He tries to laugh to lower their tension, then adds that he didn't really die, so they should not worry. In his mind, he justifies his lie, saying he is doing it, so that they won't become traumatized. The girls don't seem convinced just yet and point at the lifeblood on the ground, which looks incredibly real. He reiterates that it is just part of the illusion, and they seem to start to believe him. They move close to him and, from the bottom of their hearts, thank him for saving their lives. Yudo is a bit flustered but quickly regains his composure and says he is just glad they are all safe. The girls all blush, and the one in a white top moves closer and asks if it is okay to have his contact number. The other two girls are instantly jealous. Kagu though reminds them that everyone has evacuated, and Yuta replies that they will be right there. He tells her that they should go back for now, and it would be unfortunate to be killed by the steel serpent right after being saved. He then apologizes to Kagu for the delay, but the old man says it is okay. He teases Yuta a bit about what happened with the girls, which embarrasses him. Kagu then says they can use the teleportation gate and head back to base. This gate allows one to teleport to another gate within the same magic tower. They exist every 5 floors and are located in safe areas. Once a challenger reaches a floor with a gate, he is then automatically able to use it. Yuta notes they were lucky to be on a floor with a gate allowing an easy escape, but it won't be the same for others attacked by the steel snake. They will have no means of escape. Kagu says this is exactly why they must return to the bureau so they can coordinate with Fumi. Sometime later in the director's office, Fumi informs them that several people have already been injured or killed on the lower floors of the magic tower. The steel serpent has also been officially classified as an error of the highest priority. It is so unique they created a new category just for it. In addition, all exploration in the Great Tower has been temporarily suspended. Fumi then gets up and announces that she will head to the magic tower herself. Kagu says that even with Yuto, they still couldn't defeat it and asks her to bring back up, but she insists on going alone. She tells them not to worry as a surge of energy appears on her hand. A sleek sword with decorative carvings appears, and Yuto is thoroughly impressed. Fumi poses on the floor and declares for the 3rd time that she will go alone. In the magic tower's lower floors, Yuto is devastated as he looks at the aftermath of all the carnage that happened. There is lifeblood and weapons of fallen challengers still strewn all over the floor. According to intel, after fighting Yuto and Kagu on the 25th floor, the steel serpent descended to the 8th floor and attacked the nearby challenger. There are still intermittent earthquakes on the floor, meaning the monster is still nearby. Fumi says they cannot let it escape. Yuto questions her strategy of sending an advance party of subordinates before they arrived, as they could have been attacked by the serpent. He reminds her of the Persephone incident, but Fumi says there is no cause for concern, as a different team has been sent this time. Kagu and Yuto then turn and see the special task force under the direct control of the director of the bureau arriving. They are more commonly known as the Hyoka Squad. They report to Fumi that they are done investigating the area. The constant tremors mean that the monster is likely residing inside the wall, causing earthquakes whenever it moves. The head of the squad then acknowledges the presence of Kagu and Yuto. The young challenger is at a loss for words and is further surprised to see the squad leader bow to them in respect. He says it would have been ideal if the Hyoka squad could have handled it on their own, but this is a first-class threat on par with the boss of the Magic Tower. By fighting alongside Yuto and Kagu, they will be able to minimize their casualties. The word casualties shakes up Yuto quite a bit as he realizes the gravity of their situation. Kagu sees this and places a comforting hand on the young challenger's shoulder and says there won't be any. Yuto seconds this statement with a determined look, which the squad leader finds reassuring. Suddenly, the ground shakes. Fumi notes that the type of tremor means the monster is below the ground. There is a loud explosion as the steel serpent bursts forth from the floor. All of the Hyoka squad members immediately summon their weapons and get ready for battle. They surround the monster and attack it from multiple directions. The steel serpent unleashes multiple long tentacle spears, which the squad members are able to parry while in the air. One member, though, notices a claw coming at him from the side. 2 of his teammates had his back, though, and protect him from the attack. Kagu tells Yuto that this coordinated movement is a trademark skill of the Hyoka. They can easily take down mid-level bosses. However, the steel serpent is on a different level, as their attacks are proving ineffective. Kagu notes that even the elite Ice Hyoka won't last long. He asks Yuto if he is ready, and then says they should go all out. They both get their weapons ready and then join the fray, charging at full speed at the monster. Kagu jumps right at the monster's face, and with all his might, delivers a strong uppercut blow right under the snake's mouth. This sends its face upward, where a waiting Yuto is ready to lower his sword right at it. However, a long tentacle appears right in front of him, blocking his attack. Furthermore, 3 more are heading right at him from above. Yuto is acrobatically able to maneuver out of their way. He looks down and sees the steel serpent slithering away. Kagu screams that they can't let it escape. Fumi then springs into action, saying it is now her turn. Yuto looks on with an anxious expression as Fumi blazes forward and quickly gets in front of the serpent, blocking its exit. Yuto is amazed at her speed, while Kagu says it has been a while since he has seen her go all out. She is utilizing body enhancement and high-speed movement through magic control, as we see her calmly stand in front of the steel serpent. On top of all that, she also has a unique skill called Frost. Fumi is incredibly fast. She charges at the steel serpent, and before it can react, she strikes it right in the neck. She lands gracefully and turns to face the snake, who is still looking around for what hit him. It lets out a scream of anger but is interrupted by multiple slashes all over its long steel body. Fumi doesn't seem to be breaking a sweat as she continues her relentless attack on the steel serpent, who is unable to even counterattack due to her speed. She jumps back again to a safe distance and then rushes forward once more, leaving trails of frost on the ground. She jumps up in front of the steel serpent, charges her sword with energy, and then points it right at the monster's body. She then delivers a powerful slash, which Yudo states might slice right through the metallic body. Kagu explains that her ice amplifies her magical power to the utmost limit. Combine that with her genius-level ability to control magic, and she is able to unleash attacks so sharp that they send shivers down the spine. She lands firmly on the ground as the snake collapses behind her. She then turns and instructs everyone to prepare as they will now eliminate the error. The Hyoka squad moves forward to the fallen monster, while Yudo and Kagu watch from afar, figuring it is not yet their turn. Fumi stands on the serpent and is about to slice when it suddenly opens its eyes. A plethora of tentacles suddenly appear out of nowhere, and the monster starts to spin around and thrash about wildly. This prevents anyone on the squad from being able to get close. The steel serpent then rushes towards its escape tunnel, while its multitude of tentacles continue to move around it wildly. Fumi lands unharmed behind the monster but sees that she won't be able to stop it from escaping. Yudo is determined, though, not to lose sight of the monster and dashes right past the director. He jumps right at the snake. It senses this and attacks him with multiple tentacle claws. Yudo braces himself for the pain as they all impale him, ripping his body apart. He quickly resurrects and grabs hold of the steel serpent. He is unable to do anything, though, except get dragged along as the monster keeps moving towards the tunnel in the wall. All Yudo can do is scream in fear. We then see the upper layer of the magical tower. The steel serpent emerges from the upper side wall, and Yudo gets flung to the ground. He lands with a thud, then slowly gets up to his knees. He looks around and sees he is in a giant cave with colorful magic crystals scattered all over. In front of him is the monster, who seems to be relaxed. Yudo takes it all in as he wonders where he is. Yudo looks around the massive cave and wonders if it is a normal floor. He quickly deduces that it is not and that it is in fact the monster's nest. The steel serpent senses the intruder's presence and quickly springs into action. It attempts to strike Yudo with multiple tentacle attacks, but the young challenger is able to run out of their way. He knows, however, that it is not practical for him to try and take down the snake all on his own. As he continues to run evasively, he decides the best course of action will be to get the director and everyone else so that they can face it with their maximum power. The serpent then tries to hit him with its tail, but he is able to jump up and avoid the attack. Yudo spots the hole in the wall and knows he must make it there. He positions himself and then breaks out in a mad sprint for the exit. The monster sends multiple tentacles at him from behind, but he is able to jump away from them and continue his desperate run to the hole. The serpent attacks with tentacles once more, but this time it positions them in front of Yudo to prevent him from escaping. The young challenger smiles and comments that the monster is not good at playing tag. He then slides underneath the tentacle like a baseball player heading for the home run plate. This allows him to reach the hole. The monster sends more attacks at him, but it is too late, as he is able to jump down into safety. Back on the lower floor, Fumi, Kagu, and the others are still assessing the situation. They are all surprised when Yudo appears out of nowhere looking exhausted. Kagu says he is worried, but Fumi nonchalantly states that she knows he will not die. Yudo apologizes but quickly states that he made a discovery. He found the steel serpent's lair on the upper floors. If they all attack together, they can end it once and for all. Fumi thinks about what he said and then asks if he noticed any unusually colored stones in the room. Yudo notes that there were magic stones there different from those in the mining area. Fumi says everything now makes sense. During the last battle, the Ice Squad analyzed the serpent structure and discovered it was powered by high-purity magic. However, all the stones found in the tower were impure, so that meant there was another area that contained these pure stones. She says those are what Yudo saw, since they are what is powering its nest. The monster will not risk running away. She steps forward and tells the team it is time for them to finish this fight for good. She then pauses and Yudo wonders what is wrong. She turns to him, looking a bit ashamed, and asks him to lead the way, as he is the only one who has been to the lair. They climb up to the upper lair, where they see that the steel serpent is eating the magic crystals. Yudo guesses that it is refueling its energy. The squad members soon arrive looking gassed after the long climb. The squad leader is impressed that Yudo was able to climb the ledge so easily. Just then Kagu and Fumi leap up from the hole looking like they barely broke a sweat, which awes the others even more. Fumi then takes out her sword and then tells everyone to start the battle. She instructs them to give it all they've got. They all then charge at full speed at the steel serpent, determined to destroy it. The steel serpent sees the group of adventurers heading straight at it. It lets out a massive scream that echoes all throughout the chamber. Kagu attacks first, saying that as a great warrior, he cannot afford to witness any more suffering. He will thus put everything he has into this as his entire body and sword become covered in a magical fire aura. The serpent moves its head towards him with the intention of devouring him whole. Kagu concentrates all his magic power into this attack and then swings and strikes the serpent right in the mouth, stopping it dead in its tracks. The impact damages the monster's mouth. Kagu then swings his sword like a golfer would swing a club, sending the monster flying into the air. It crashes into the wall and falls to the ground. Yudo saw this all and thought it was amazing. The serpent is far from done, however, as the light in its eyes seems to emit anger. It once again releases its myriad of long tentacles, striking everything near it. Kagu is dismayed that his all-out attack was still not enough to kill it. The monster then sends its tentacles at the Hyoka squad members. They rain down on the ground like bullets, which the challengers are barely able to avoid. A panicked voice pierces the battlefield as Yudo looks on with concern. Fumi also hears it, but her face betrays no emotion. Two of the squad members are fighting for their lives. They stand back to back and block the two tentacle attacks with their sword. One of them states that he has defeated numerous errors, so an attack like this should not be enough to take him down. Yudo sees them and shouts at them to pay attention to the area above them. They look up, but it is too late, as the tentacles strike them down, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Kagu is surprised. Even Fumi starts to show some concern on her face. The squad leader screams out their names in grief and fails to notice that tentacles are also coming down on him from above. He knows he won't be able to stop them and closes his eyes and braces for impact. Yudo, though, appears from behind him and is able to parry the two tentacles, thus saving the squad leader's life. The young challenger tells the leader not to let his guard down and that the time to grieve their fallen comrades will come later. He adds that if he dies too, no one will be left to honor them as he remembers his past tragic experiences. The squad leader looks at the bloody corpse of his friend and then says that Yudo is right and that he will get through this. Elsewhere, Kagu also has his hands full blocking tentacles non-stop. He moves towards Yudo and says that the enemy's attacks are overwhelming them all. He wonders what their strategy is. Just then, Fumi cast Frostbite Ultimate Expansion. The whole ground and area around her become covered in ice. The tentacles are also frozen in place while some squad members look on in relief and surprise. Fumi says that if only she had been stronger, no one would have been hurt. Yudo looks on, unsure of what is happening. The director's hair then turns white as snow as she seems to be frozen as well. The powered-up Fumi approaches the serpent. The creature launches its tentacles at her. The director effortlessly evades them while getting nearer to the monster. She cuts one up, evades the others again, and cuts them again. Every tentacle comes to her, so she cuts them all up like a demon. The serpent screams in pain from all its limbs being cut off. It rushes towards Fumi with visible rage. It tries to bite her, but she evades. She declares that she will take the monster's head off and power up her sword until it looks huge and long. She drops the blade towards the serpent. It causes a powerful explosion, but she misses the target. The creature then uses its tail to hit Fumi on her side. The impact sends her flying to a high wall. Yudo worries for the director. Her powerful sword then drops to the ground. He recognizes that his foe's sword is not sharp enough to sever the steel serpent. He targets Fumi's sword, thinking it will be enough to defeat it. The monster then sets its sights on Yudo. The man gets scared but resigns himself to the fact that he is about to die. He lets it bite at him. He dies, then respawns near Fumi's sword and grabs it. As he runs, he tells the creature that he is not as fast as Fumi. He then puts the blade of his sword next to his neck. He cries as he declares that he has a way to make a guaranteed strike at the monster. Yudo dies and then reveals that he has respawned just above the head of the steel serpent. He then slashes it with his finishing blow at its neck. Blue light envelops the creature. Finally, Yudo is able to behead it. The others marvel at the sight of the monster being defeated. Fumi thanks Yudo for it and tells him that the deaths of their subordinates won't have been in vain. Suddenly, the window notifies them that the boss of the magic tower has been defeated. Yudo gets confused and asks the director what this means. Fumi now realizes that she made a mistake when she said that the Tower of Proteus does not have any special features. She reviews all the reports of the tower and all the monsters they have faced so far and realizes that they all have the ability to hide their true forms. She now realizes that Proteus is the tower most bold in concealing its form, and that the steel serpent has been its boss all along. She cites this as the rare case where the boss can leave the top floor of the tower. Fumi sees that Yudo seems dissatisfied. The man replies that he does not feel like it was he alone who defeated it, and that it was all down to the entire team. He remembers how he told Ryu that there wouldn't be any casualties under his watch and regrets that people still ended up dying. Despite the windows saying that the boss has just been defeated, he is not satisfied with himself and hopes to be even stronger. Slowly, his surroundings start to disappear. Later, they meet up at the Management Bureau office. There, Yudo gives the unique bracelet he received as a reward from the tower to Fumi. He also gives her the mountains of magic stones he received. The director thinks that this is some sort of prank. Yudo says that the boss's defeat was a collective achievement, so he does not feel comfortable keeping the rewards to himself and has decided to entrust it all to the Bureau. He asks that the director use it to support other challengers. Later in the corridor, Ryu appears in front of Yudo and Kagu that he wants to ask them a request. He explains that the raid on the Tower of Zeus is about to begin, and that the Hyoka squad will take part in it. However, he feels frustrated now that he realizes that his strength is not yet enough for him to lead his men there safely. He admits that losing more comrades is the last thing he wants. He lowers his head towards the two and asks that they train him. Ryu is in the Bureau training area looking exhausted, yet still having a determined look in his eyes. He charges towards Kagu, but he blocks his sword without effort. No matter how much Ryu tries, the man can't be hit. Still, Ryu does not stop trying. Behind Kagu comes Yudo, who is about to strike him too. Kagu is impressed he sneaked up on him, yet he still effortlessly blocks his strike. Despite being surrounded from front to back, he still overpowers both men to the point of them being pushed meters away from him. He tells the two that they are being soft on him and challenges them to give it their all. It was 1 month ago when Ryu asked to be trained by the Dominator. Yudo told him that he was in no position to train anyone since he was in the middle of training too. It leads Ryu to ask that he undergo the same training as him. Kagu was glad to take him in and told him that he was welcome. He promised that he would make them stronger before the Zeus operation begins. Back in the present, Yudo and Ryu are gauging Kagu for an opening. Despite feeling stronger since a month ago, he still feels like Kagu is a mountain he can never climb. It makes him all the more motivated to attack the guy with Ryu on his side. While Kagu swats his attackers away, he tells them that he will rest easy once they get even stronger. Yudo reviews that Kagu has not been hit once since they began their training. Again, Ryu calls for them to attack Kagu. Both have not lost their resolve and rush towards him in full force. They look fierce as they near their mentor, yet the man looks unmoved. Kagu warns them that he will dominate the arena with his flames. He gets engulfed in a tornado of flames. Later, Yudo and Ryu can barely stand as they rest. Kagu compliments them for improving their coordination. He tells his students that it does not matter that they were unable to win against him, but that they do well in the upcoming Magic Tower. Still, his students are frustrated. Later, the trio goes to the building lobby. There, they see from a screen that the Bureau has finally announced to the public about the Zeus operation. Ryu promises that he will protect his subordinates this time. A few days later, volunteer challengers have gathered at the examination venue. The host there tells the volunteers that their abilities will be taken into account so they can be assigned to the right operation groups. The host asks for the first 2 volunteers to step up. Fumi realizes who the 2 are and tells them that Yudo told her all about them. She wants to confirm to herself how much stronger they have become. It is revealed that the 2 are Yuri and Mana, and they look stronger than they were before. Yudo and Kagu arrive at the 60th floor of the Magic Tower of Zeus. There, people on the front lines have gathered with tents and equipment. The area looks like a crowded market street within a dungeon. Kagu tells Yudo that there are many of them because their group will be split into those who fight and those who will support them. He also informs him that Ryu and the Hyoka squad will be deployed later once the operation has progressed further. They laugh as Yudo makes a joke that they should not die until they meet up with Ryu. One of the volunteers is a man who gets pissed off by seeing the 2 so relaxed. He yells at them for acting like this whole operation is just a game. Yudo and Kagu turn their heads to him, looking intimidating. Instantly, the man regrets saying anything. They comfort him by talking to him like a friend and telling him that it is okay to relax for now. Yudo tells him that they are just doing it before the hell they are about to experience. Near the camp is a rocky environment filled with pools of magma. Yudo reviews that the Tower of Zeus has been open to the public for a long time, but it has only been recently since the 59th floor has been cleared. The number of casualties has been vast since people started going to the 60th floor, and so the conquest operation has been drafted by the Management Bureau. Now he sees that the cause of these casualties is the heat wave. Kagu tells him that stepping into the heat wave zone means continuous damage. He announces to the group that they have no choice but to advance while continuously casting healing magic on the group. Kagu claps his hands to gather everyone. He orders those in charge of healing to focus on their magic, while everyone else needs to protect the healers. Yudo wonders if his reversal skill might turn the group's healing magic against him. He turns to the heatwave area and wonders if his reversal will turn the damage into healing. He puts his hand into the heatwave area, and as he predicted, The continuous damage turns into continuous recovery. He smiles, knowing that he does not need healing magic in the area. He approaches Kagu and awkwardly tells him that he is resistant to the heat wave. Before Kagu can ask any questions, he quickly runs off. It is so out of nowhere that Kagu and others in the party do not know how to react. They see him get into the heat zone alone, and they have no idea what to do about it. Yudo is exploring the heat wave zone when suddenly, his body gets cut by multiple blade strikes. His body goes limp on the floor. Just before he closes his eyes, he sees a trio of people wearing white robes and bird masks approaching him. He responds, angry that they just ambushed him. The attackers pull out their daggers and fly towards him with their wings. He manages to block their strikes and push them back from him. Yudo declares that because of his training, they can't do anything to him in a head-on fight. Yudo gets into a back and forth, crossing blades with the white-robed trio. He wonders why they have wings. The system window then tells him that they are the Holy Assassination Squad. Yudo feels like angels like them should be out of place in an area where there is a heat wave. He charges towards them again and is able to push aside two of them to get to the one in the center. The assassin tries to strike him with its dagger with such a quick force that it almost hits him. Yudo tells him that he could have hit him a month ago. He counters and hits him with a force that puts him into the far rocky wall. Yudo sees that he is still not down. Just as he is about to attack him again, he senses a dagger about to hit him. He manages to block it, but the moment of distraction lets the trio escape. He runs after them but stops as he realizes that they might be luring him into a trap. They are so quick that they disappear in a blink of Yudo's eye. He looks around but can't find them. At the last second before their attack, he realizes that they are above him. He evades the first strike, but the strike breaks the ground, and a golden magic crystal gets thrown near Yudo. It explodes, sending him flying away to a great distance. Still, the angels go after him. They destroy as much of the rocky surroundings as they can and hit all the magic stones. It leads every stone to explode all at once. Yudo dies and then gets revived with plus 40 strength points. He respawns at the exact moment he can behead one of the angels. He then goes after the others, so they throw daggers at him. These blades all get sent to the ground, exploding more stones that Yudo gets away from on his way to his enemies. He then reaches one of them and cuts him into a million pieces. The last one ambushes him from behind, but he blocks the attack and sends him slamming into the distance. Yudo gets an idea and follows up his attack, intending to make him explode. He thrusts his sword into the enemy, smashing him into a wall full of magic stones. The angel assassin tries to move away from the exploding magic stones, but he is no longer strong enough to stand. Meanwhile, Yudo is already far away from him. The stones explode, along with the enemy. Meanwhile, Yudo has discovered that his burns heal up because of his reversal skill. His system window informs him that the explosive magic stones are the heat source for the heat wave. He looks at the stones that surround the walls and notices that he is at the spot where they are most concentrated. It gives him the idea of destroying all the stones to make the heat wave disappear. He hits as many stones in quick succession, causing a chain reaction of explosions. Elsewhere in the heat wave zone are Kagu and the team, and most of them look exhausted from the heat. One male complainer demands one of the healers hurry up with the healing magic. The healer girl instantly activates her magic and heals everyone. It consumes her energy that he rests. The complainer sees her resting and yells at her. He looks frustrated as he complains to her that she needs to feel more responsible about their lives. Kagu puts his arms around his shoulder to calm him down and tells him not to pressure the healer. Secretly, Kagu is worried that their team is on edge. He looks around and sees that all hope is lost in their eyes. Suddenly, a creature is behind the healer girl. In an instant, she is already lying on the floor. One healer wants to treat her, but the complainer tells her to abandon someone useless like her in favor of the rest of them. Suddenly, an angel assassin appears from above the group. Kagu slays him before he harms the others. It leaves 3 more angels to appear and attack the team. Everyone panics as they know that they have no chance against them in their weakened state. Only Kagu is able to face them. He worries that it will only be a matter of time until his team gets wiped out. Meanwhile, he sees Yudo running towards the battle. The complainer thinks he just came back for healing magic and accuses him of being useless. Yudo laughs as he tells him that he just destroyed all the heat sources and that the heat wave will disappear soon. After 3 seconds, the heat wave disappears. Kagu can't believe he extinguished the heat wave all by himself and tells him that there is never a dull moment with him. Yudo gets back at the complainer with a big smirk and asks if he still thinks he's useless. The man abandons his pride and awkwardly thanks him for saving them. They see that the team's morale has been lifted up already. Kagu tells Yudo that they need to use the momentum to push forward. They bump each other's fists and then continue their trek. They continue from the 61st floor up until the 64th without losing a single member. Elsewhere, somewhere in the tower, A group of angel assassins are pulling something with chains. Out of the shadows is a three-headed, long-necked dragon. The creature raises his body and makes a loud roar. The team has arrived at the 65th floor. There they are glad to see a transfer gate portal that will make going back and forth with the lower floors much easier. The others are so tired Kagu thinks they should let them rest on a lower floor first. The main complainer asks how Kagu and Yudo are still so energetic despite clearing so many floors in a row. Yudo wonders if it is because of his harsh training under Kagu. Yudo asks everyone to take a rest while he and Kagu explore the 65th floor. A voice suddenly appears to tell the complainer that he does not need to worry about the two of them as long as Hyuka's squad is by their side. Out of the transfer gate come Ryu and his Hyuka squad. Ryu reports to Kagu and Yudo that his squad has already cleared the remaining monsters on the 61st to 64th floors. He also reports that the rear forces are collecting resources on the lower floors. Ryu also says that he came to lend them help and then fist bumps with Yudo. Kagu, Yudo, and the Hyuka squad explore the 65th floor and notice that there is no heat wave. Ryu warns Yudo not to take it easy since his experience tells him that they are about to face a mid-boss soon. Yudo worries since a mid-boss in Zeus might be stronger than other mid-bosses of other towers. He suddenly stops walking and then reminds Ryu to protect his subordinates this time. Ryu asks him why he is getting so serious all of a sudden, only to realize that they are already in front of the gate of a mid-boss. The group enters. There, they see the three-headed dragon. The system window shows that it is the Annihilate Hydra. Ryu commands the Hyuka squad to prepare for battle, so they tense up and prepare their weapons. The Hydra tries to attack them, but the chains around its necks stop it. Yudo questions why it is restrained and has a bad feeling. He tries to stop Ryu and the others from attacking, but they are already running towards the creature. They behead every head from its neck. In the process, the restraints around the necks are also removed. Still, the monster's body is down and seemingly lifeless. Seconds later, the necks start to regrow until all the heads have returned. Yudo worries that the battle is about to begin now that the collars are off. The creature roars as it prepares for battle. Yudo worries for Ryu as the Hydra has its eye on him. Ryu blocks the monster's claws and assures Yudo that he has endured the same training as him. He declares that he will die. The monster then tries to attack the others in the Hyuka squad. Ryu blocks that attack too and declares that he won't let his subordinates die either. Ryu makes hand gestures to signal to his team their next attack. Two of the Hydra's heads charge up an energy ball in their mouths. They shoot it at the squad, but they evade it by jumping high into the air. They then head to the monster and attack it with a unified assault. Kagu and Yudo see that the squad has become even stronger and more refined in their coordination. It motivates the two to get on the offensive too. They notice that while the head can regenerate, its other wounds around the body are not healed. Yudo asks Kagu if they need to focus their attacks on other areas than the neck. Kagu replies that its torso is so thick that they have no way of fatally damaging it. He proposes that they figure out how it is regenerating its head first. He cuts off one of its heads again to learn more about the creature. The head starts to slowly grow back. Using his magic perception, Kagu notices something off. He tells Yudo to use his perception too. Yudo activates it and sees that magic is concentrated at the regenerating neck. He also notices that there are magic cores in each of the necks and so determines that it is using the magic from the core to regenerate its necks. The duo begins their rush with the plan to destroy the cores. The Hydra roars and moves its giant wings. The flapping of the wings is like a tornado that pushes everyone off balance. Two of the heads begin to make their ball of energy. It shoots multiple orbs of it across the battlefield. The challengers stand their ground while their surroundings get enveloped with destruction. One of its giant collars that was on the creature's neck before gets tossed to the air by the destruction and almost lands on Yudo. He notices that the collars have engraved magic circles under them. Kagu sees that he looks troubled, so he asks what is wrong. Yudo replies that he is concerned about the engravings under the collar and how they might have been used to seal a magic attack from each head. It makes him wonder why the other two have green engravings, while the one in front of him has a red one. He imagines that this means this engraving was meant to seal the most powerful head. What troubles him the most is that the head at the center has yet to show its attack, and he theorizes that it must be the head sealed by the collar with the red engraving. The Hydra flies higher. While hovering, the center head charges up an energy ball with a different color than the ones the other two heads produced. All challengers on the battlefield are tense in anticipation of the attack. The ball of energy then grows 20 times its size, with black electricity surrounding it to boot. The Hydra launches its giant ball of energy, and it hits the ground, putting shockwaves and black lightning everywhere. Everyone jumps to evade the electricity. Unfortunately, the lightning on the floor is not disappearing no matter how long they wait. The members of the Hyuka squad land first and get electrified. Even Kagu is electrified. Lastly, Yudo lands and experiences the pain himself. While it is painful, he recognizes that it is not enough to kill them. He looks at the others and is shocked to see that everyone is lying on the ground. His system window opens to reveal that he will experience severe paralysis like the others. This window then turns green and informs him that he will be paralyzed. Yuto sees that only Kagu is the one left standing of those unable to move. Yuto faces the monster but is not confident he can slay it alone. The creature shot its orbs of energy at him, so he evaded. Yuto also worries about what will happen if any of its attacks reach his teammates. The Hydra uses its tail to whip Yuto, sending him flying. While he is still flying, the creature readies to fire another magic orb towards the paralyzed challengers. Yuto steps on one of the pillars to propel himself back. He blocks the path of the orb, but he dies in the process. His inversion gives him plus 38 of health. The Hydra is about to fire, so he respawns just in front of one of its heads. It fires, so he dies and gets plus 51 of defense. He respawns in front of the creature just in time as it is about to fire 2 orbs of energy. He worries that he can't stop both at the same time. Mana suddenly appears to tell Yuto that she will stop the one on the right. The girl runs towards the creature with lightning speed. Meanwhile, Yuri is at the entrance gate and is about to fire a water blast with her magic staff. She tells Yuto to leave the other one to her. Yuto is surprised to see Mana and Yuri again. Mana jumps into the air and spins and then drops at the Hydra to deliver numerous cuts at it. It causes the Hydra to fire its ball of energy towards the ceiling. However, Yuto sees that the other head manages to fire on target towards the paralyzed team. Yuri assures him that she will shoot it down for him. She launches her water blast, and it intercepts the energy orb and makes it explode midway. The explosion reaches one of the creature's heads and disintegrates it, leading it to back away. The girl asks Yuto if they have become stronger in his eyes. He asks why they are here, so they tell him that they are one of the volunteers of the subjugation squad. They tell him that they will not be a burden to him anymore. Yuto recalls the days when they were the ones trying to protect him and the time when they split up as a party. He remembers them saying that they will be back to form their party again once they get stronger. Yuto smiles and tells them that he can tell how strong they are just by looking at them. The trio stands together, ready to defeat the Hydra. Yuto tells the two that their objective is to destroy the core inside the creature's body to stop its head from regenerating. He tells Yuri to use his magic perceptions to confirm the location of its cores. She sees it, so Yuto asks her to pierce it with her magic. She powers up her magic staff to ready her next spell. She uses her magic perception to aim, and then she fires a water blast. It pierces through one of the necks, destroys the core, and exits on the other side. Yuto is impressed and is relieved that they no longer need to worry about the head regenerating. The Hydra rises with its wings and readies to fire its giant energy ball with lightning paralysis. Yuto and Mana rush towards the creature to stop it. They both cut the central head in tandem, leading the monster to fire the energy ball at the ceiling instead. The monster then quickly recharges another giant energy ball to fire again. Yuri assures the others she got it and fires a water blast. It pierces the central head's neck, destroying its core. It leads the Hydra to fall to the ground, but the ball still fires past Yuri. They fear that it will reach the paralyzed teammates. Meanwhile, Ryu has just recovered from paralysis and is about to be hit by the energy head-on. He gladly faces it to protect everyone behind him. Yuto realizes what he is about to do and tries to run and stop him. Ryu smiles and faces the blast without a hint of fear, while declaring that this is his wish. The ball explodes the moment it hits him. The moment it explodes, Ryu is sent flying far until he hits the wall and pulverizes it. There he lies and gets incapacitated. The Hydra roars as if it knows it gained a victory. It makes Yuto angry. Meanwhile, Kagu has also recovered. Behind him, so are the Hyoka squad members. Yuto tells himself that Ryu's actions have not been in vain. He asks Kagu if he can count on him to cut off its neck. The man replies that it is a guarantee. Both of them rush towards the enemy. Again, the Hydra fires an orb of energy, but Yuri is there to counter it with a water blast in midair. The Hydra backs away from Yuto and Kagu, but it does not see that Mana is also nearing it from above. She hits the creature, putting it down. While it is down, KGU cuts off its center neck. While it regenerates, Yuto is coming to finish it off. The man demands that the creature stay down permanently as he stabs it at its regenerating neck. He pierces the last core inside it, making the creature break into pieces. Elsewhere in the tower, a goddess-like woman senses the life of her servant fading away and wants to know who is responsible. Back in the mid-boss room, the team has gathered around the dying Ryu. The dying man sees Yuto looking sad and tells him to stop it. He claims that he is not dying after all despite being ready for it. He says that he only needs rest and treatment. However, the man still goes lifeless. Yuto cries and screams for his friend. Elsewhere, the goddess senses a divine presence and realizes that it is the infinite resurrection. She feels happy, knowing she can meet someone she knows again after a long time. Back in the mid-boss room, Yuto continues to cry over the death of his friend. After checking on Ryu's condition, Yuto gets out of the medical tent where Mana, Yuri, and Kogu are waiting for him and also worried about the squad captain. He reports that the man is in stable condition and thanks to healing magic, his injuries are getting better. It is truly a blessing that he didn't lose his life despite all the damage that has happened, and that they wish he wakes up soon. Mana asks what Yuto will do and tells him that it might be better if he steps away from the front lines and rests for a bit. However, he declines this idea, saying that he won't hinder their progress because of his concern for Ryu, and adds that the man will get depressed if he knew that they paused because of him. With a big smile on his face, he states confidently that his friend will wake up soon. Elsewhere, the Heavenly Mentor is performing a ritual to summon her master. She calls forth the Sacred Assassination Squad who all bow down to her. She then feels a vile presence which feels like the taint of lowly humans. She feels sick to her core that such a holy place is being trashed by lowly humans. She orders the assassins to annihilate the troublesome humans and create a new path for them clear of the filth. The deaths of the vile humans should illuminate the path, and she will be honored as the Queen of Infinite Life. She throws back her head and laughs menacingly. Her terrifying laugh echoes through the whole chamber. In the Zeus, the challengers are digging for the resource recovery operation, and it is progressing smoothly. Fuyu and her assistant, Jean, are overseeing the operation. Fuyu is looking from her device and confirms that there is a huge amount of valuable resources lying dormant within the Zeus. They are there to secure the high-quality resources. Jean reports that the monsters rampaging around the area have all been annihilated, and no challengers are hurt in the subjugation either. Even so, they should not let their guard down and should be careful until they finish the operation. The director points out that no matter how careful they can be, unexpected situations will occur. Just then, they hear a screeching scream, and Jean drops her phone in shock. Fuyu dashes quickly to the source of the scream followed by Jean. The two are stunned and horrified upon seeing a group of challengers annihilated. Since they remain stunned, Jean doesn't sense that a monster is coming their way. She almost doesn't dodge it, but luckily, she is saved by the director who slays the monster in a swift move. The girl trembles at the sudden attack and can't believe that a monster survived the sweep. The two brace themselves in case another monster appears. They are sure that they are a new type of monster specifically targeting the conquerors. Just then, more monsters appear, and they attack the two girls. The director is about to strike the incoming horde of monsters when luckily Yuto arrives and annihilates the remaining assassins. He reports that the 60th floor was purged by the assassins and he wanted to rescue the raiders as soon as possible. He tells them to lend a hand and charges towards the assassins again. The director also slashes through the enemies, slaying one as she sways her sword. She moves swiftly, annihilating every one of them with her mighty sword. Yuto stands in awe, impressed by the power of the director. She then demands that he explain in more detail what is happening on the floor. He agrees with this but tells them that they have to move as well and discuss along the way. While walking, the boy explains that they were in the safe area of the dungeon hours before. However, they heard the piercing scream of the raiders and came to their rescue. Upon arriving at the area, they were horrified by the bloody scene. The assassins annihilated the rest of the raiders and they were too late to save them. Just then, they heard another scream followed by another different scream. Since simultaneous screams happened in different locations, he thought that the raiders from different areas were attacked at the same time. Since they didn't know how to handle that many angels, they tried to scatter and check different locations. He left his spot to Kogu and others and came looking for the director, who he figured would be on the floor. More raiders are being attacked by the angels. One of them drops his sword after an intense sparring with the angel. He closes his eyes, praying so hard since he doesn't want to die yet. As he is about to be killed, Yuto arrives with the director, saving him from his doomed fate. The duo annihilate the monster swiftly, thrusting their swords into the enemy. The angel falls to the ground and disintegrates. The director instructs Yuto to take the remaining challengers to the safe area while she and Jean will check the other areas to clear out the remaining rampaging angels. He follows her order and rushes to the other raiders to take them to the safe area. However, when they arrive at the safe area, Yuto is shocked that there are still angels roaming around when Kogu and others should have already dealt with them. They wait for a moment until the angel is gone. They proceed to their space in the safe area, and he is glad to see that everyone is safe. Yuri is glad to see him as well. Yuto looks at one of the raiders and tells her that they are finally safe. However, a horde of angels unexpectedly appears and begins to attack them. Yuto is trapped in the middle and spars with one of the angels. While he exchanges blows, he tells the two raiders to run and escape while they can. The man apologizes and they start to get away from there. Mana joins in to fight against the angels. Soon, the four of them are being surrounded by the assassins. They stay alert and ready themselves for a sudden attack. After a while, Yuto finds it odd that the angels are not charging at them. Suddenly, a gate transfer opens. The challenger is torn. If the angels attack them all at once, they will surely suffer losses. He has no choice but to accept the invitation and enter the gate. Kogu immediately expresses his agreement with Yuto's decision, noting that he is ready to jump in any time. Mana exhales, looking worried but supporting the decision as well. After getting everyone's approval, he leads them as they enter the transfer gate. Upon entering, Yuto immediately feels an overwhelming presence of power. Seeing the scene before him, he grips his sword and points it at the woman standing in the middle of the chamber. The woman is referred to as the Heavenly Mentor, and they realize that they are on the 150th floor, which is also called the Chamber of the Rulers. This means that they are also inside the boss room, but something feels odd, and Yuto can't put a name to it yet. The mentor states that she can't find her god but can clearly sense a divine power among them. She tries to identify the source of the divine strength. Surprised, she asks the boy why he carries the divine power of her god. This makes her boil in rage, screaming that he should not possess a power that mighty because it should belong only to her master. A lowly rat like him should experience a slow, agonizing death for daring to obtain the power of the gods. Enraged, she attacks him and grabs him with the large hands of her angel throne. She plans to relentlessly crush his body again and again until his spirit is the first to give up. Rage consumes her as she realizes that the divine power he possesses is infinite revival. She tightly wraps her hand around his frail body and slowly crushes him to death. Yuto suffers excruciating pain when she drops him only to catch him again and finally squeeze him to death. Yuto dies instantly, and as a death penalty, a permanent debuff is applied to him only for it to be reversed into a positive stat. Yuto gets revived but breathes heavily after being crushed. The mentor tells him that infinite revival is not something a human body can handle. Through multiple deaths, all his abilities should be completely stripped away by infinite revival and nothing else. He wonders if she is talking about the debuff he receives every time he revives. The mentor then casts another powerful heavenly spell and hurls numerous bright spheres of power toward Mana and the others. Meanwhile, Yuto decides that he must attack again before he gets overwhelmed. The mentor deals with him, casting golden chains in his direction. The chains pierce through Yuto's body, giving him excruciating pain. The mentor explains that in order to extract authority, one must exhaust both body and soul to their very limits until they are shattered by the pain of death. He is going to keep her entertained until then. Yuto dies and gets revived again. With no intention of playing along, he charges toward the mentor and clashes with her using his sword. Their weapons clang as they exchange blows. She calls him pathetic for still fighting her when it is obvious that he is at a disadvantage. She tells him to bow before her as she restrains him using her golden chains. He tries to wriggle out of the constraints, and she smiles menacingly and slays him once more, decapitating him. He dies again, and once he is revived, he screams in utmost agony after such a traumatic death. The woman reaches for him again, refusing to let him escape. She grabs him using her golden chains and bifurcates him, wanting to break him. He dies and revives again. Once he returns to life, he cries out in deep anguish. He has not yet recovered from the pain, but she grabs him again and restrains him with the chains, piercing his heart. She makes him feel unimaginable pain again and again, intending to break his soul and make him utterly miserable. She urges him to beg and free himself from the infinite resurrection, and then her chance to steal the power from him will be attainable. Meanwhile, Yuri trembles at the sight of her friend dead once again. She bites her lip and goes ballistic. Unable to control herself, she grips her wand tightly and activates it, her boiling rage palpable. Her wand glows as she casts her ice spell. She attacks the woman, who clearly has no interest in anything other than Yuto. She deems the mage an unnecessary, lowly human who happened to stray into her floor and underestimates her power. So when Yuri's attack connects and causes a crack in the throne's hand, she smiles. She is thrilled that the mage in front of her is not just a stray human after all. With determination, she steps forward, ready to fight the woman with all her might. She vows not to be a burden to Yuto anymore, and to be the one who will protect him now. She is intent on shattering the mentor and stopping her from hurting Yuto even more. She holds her wand and casts a powerful spell toward the woman. The divine being counters her attack and nullifies it. Yuri attacks again. This time her water ball covers a wider space, wanting to devour the mentor with it. Frustrated with her undying spirit, the mentor casts a shield that neutralizes the mage's power. At her limit, Yuri slumps to the floor, drenched in sweat and running out of breath. She gets attacked by a fire spell and becomes trapped on the other side of it, preventing her from interfering in the mentor's fight against Yuto. The woman casts a fire whirl spell and dominates the space with blazing heat, targeting the mage. As the fire engulfs the area, Kogu rushes to Yuri's side and nullifies the attack. He tells her that they have to fight alongside each other because they are comrades. She doesn't have to fight alone because he feels the same way about wanting to protect Yuto, reminding her that she should rely on her allies more, especially since they share the same goal. The mage agrees with him, apologetic about her selfish actions. Just then, the woman is about to strike them with her huge hand, taking advantage because their focus is away from the fight. Fortunately, Mana steps in to rescue them, striking the hand with her sword. The hand shatters into many pieces, causing her throne to lose balance. She mocks the mentor, pointing out that she seems interested in no one but Yuto when there are clearly 3 of them standing there. The mentor bursts into manic laughter, and the trio feels a chill crawl down their spines as they watch her lose her sanity right before their eyes. She then apologizes sarcastically for giving them hope from the very beginning, saying she should have made it clear that their existences are on completely different levels. Borrowing divine authority, she casts unending blessing light, causing her severed hand to regenerate instantly. The authority grants her ultra-regenerative, sustained healing. No matter what injury she suffers, they mend within seconds, and their attacks will no longer leave even a scratch on her. She unleashes her full power and commands them to fall into despair, eager to prove that they are nothing more than lowly humans who are trash beneath her feet. Just then, Yuto recovers from the trauma of her torture, realizing that she has gained an ultra-speed healing buff. Yuri brightens upon seeing him regain his senses. Yuto tightens his grip, determined to knock her down with his friends in a single, high-powered strike. Gathering wind and light around him, he charges straight at the woman, ready to take her down. Yuto charges at the mentor again. The mentor is frustrated since he seems not at all weakened from his infinite resurrection, despite dying at her hands 3 times. Yuto jumps towards the enemy and tells her that his death penalty strengthens him with each death. The mentor blocks his sword while mumbling that he is not making any sense. As Yuto gets pushed back, she tries to grab him with her giant hand. Yuto sees it coming and stops it by slashing it multiple times with its sword. The mentor then fills the battle space with a red light. Yuto can tell that the light is analyzing his body. He believes that it is no threat to him since there would not be any problems even if she found out about his reversal ability. He charges towards the monster woman again. She tries to stop her with her giant hands, but he slices and passes through them. She warns Yuto that it is only a matter of time until her analysis of his body is complete. Yuri blasts the mentor with cannons of water while she is distracted by Yuto. It leads the enraged monster to throw balls of golden light at her. Mana suddenly carries Yuri and gets her out of the way. Mana makes light of the situation by teasing that Yuri is as light as ever. The monster then follows up with more light blasts. Mana calls for Kogu to make a move. The man then swings his sword, which unleashes a powerful slash of fire. The fire blocks all of the light blast. This leads to the mentor insulting them as a puny race that would not just die. Distracted, Yuto is able to lash her with his sword. Unfortunately, he sees that his attack instantly healed up. He says that the best course of action is to end her with a powerful attack before she can properly heal. The mentor unleashes her golden chains, but Yuto evades them. He charges up his fast sword, intending to end her with his most powerful blow. He fires a powerful energy blast, which tears off huge chunks of the monster's body. Yuto wonders if he finally did it. He then hears the voice saying that the analysis has been completed, making him fear the worst. The mentor heals up while smiling, saying that she now knows of Yuto's skill of reversal. She laughs out loud and calls his ability blasphemous. She sarcastically tells him that she will share her blessing with him. She calls on the light of the divine authority and grants Yuto her ultra-high-speed regeneration. The green light of healing around Yuto turns red as the mentor states that he will reverse her healing. She smiles, as she knows that he will suffer through death at ultra-high speed. Instantly, Yuto feels tremendous pain from the healing blessing. The mentor predicts that his mind and body will completely shatter. Yuto dies. He is sent to the void after death, annoyed that his opponent has cast a regeneration buff on someone like him, who has reversal. He recalls how the light healed the mentor instantly. He grinds his teeth at the thought of how fast it will let him die. He sweats at the thought of dying, no matter how much he fights its effect. The status warns him that he has 3 seconds left before revival, but his thoughts are clouded with questions of what will happen to the healing light after he gets revived. He revives and is relieved to see that the effect of the healing light on him is gone. The mentor smiles mischievously as she sees her healing light envelope Yuto again. She tells him that the embrace of her light will never leave him, no matter how many times he comes back to life. Again, Yuto dies in agonizing pain. He revives again, but in another part of the room. The mentor tells him that it does not matter what location he gets revived in. Again, Yuto dies in an instant. Again and again, he dies, chipping down his sanity each time. His friends watch on, disturbed at the sight of it. The mentor enjoys seeing the man get back up again. Yuto screams in pain that he hates the light as he dies again. Yuri can't take the sight of Yuto suffering anymore. She screams in rage as she unleashes her water magic again. The mentor has grown tired of her attacks, and she summons many henchmen. One tries to strike her, but mana blocks it. Kogu finishes all the henchmen with one large flaming slice. The annoyed mentor asks them why they keep fighting when there is no chance for them to win. She summons even more of her minions. As Kogu slaughters them, he tells the boss enemy that seeing his comrades being slaughtered brutally is reason enough to continue fighting. He jumps towards the mentor and unleashes a powerful downward slash with a powerful flame. The resulting explosion is so powerful that it covers the monster's large body in thick smoke. Just as Kogu thinks he can rest, the monster's giant hand reaches for him from behind. He sees it coming and pushes it back with his sword. The other hand comes for him, so he slices its fingers off. Kogu asks the mentor if his attacks have made her understand pain. The mentor responds that because of the divine blessing she receives, her wounds close up before she can feel pain. She tells him that pain is reserved only for inferior life forms like them. Kogu grinds his teeth at her answer. It distracts him that a giant hand manages to hit him. It leads him flying until he hits and breaks a wall. Yuri and Mana go to Kogu. While they are busy, the mentor refocuses on Yuto and plans to extract her infinite resurrection. More of her minions appear to fight Yuri and Mana, who are protecting Kogu's injured body. Meanwhile, Yuto is still dead on the floor. In the void after death, he sits. The notification opens to inform him that it has noticed that divine authority has been deployed on his body multiple times. In response, it warns Yuto that the effect of reversal has been extended. Its text then changes to tell him that the skill of God Annihilation is now available. He wonders what this means. The notification informs Yuto that God Annihilation makes him able to put a reversal on his enemy. It dawns on him that the mentor is currently under the effect of a super healing buff. He gets up with the hope that he can now counterattack. He makes a huge grin as he starts to return to the land of the living. The mentor is confused as to why Yuto looks so happy when he can see that his comrades are about to lose their lives. She also warns him that he will instantly die again. Like clockwork, Yuto dies again. He sees that with his friends about to die, he gets the determination to end the fight with his new ability. As he revives again, he deploys God Annihilation, which manifests as a bright ball of energy in his hand. The mentor senses danger as she asks him what the light means. Yuto runs towards her while telling her that she is about to find out. The mentor blasts him with multiple light blasts to stop him from getting near. While he evades, he eventually gets hit and dies. He gets revived and tries to get near the monster again. He declares that he does not care, no matter how many times he dies, as long as he can land the God Annihilation curse on her. Again, the lights hit him, and he dies. He tries again and dies again. The mentor is getting frustrated with his persistence. She fires light blasts that Yuto is getting better at evading. Still, the man dies. He tries again. The mentor slams her giant hand at him, but he dodges. She fires her light blasts, but he evades them. She tries to grab him with her other hand, but he manages to evade it too. He gets nearer to the monster than ever before, only for her golden chains to make him unable to move. She fires another light at him, which makes him die again. The mentor kills her over and over again so much that she is starting to enjoy it. Again, she kills him more times than she is in bliss. The next revival, the mentor is worried as he did not appear in a visible spot and frantically searches for him. Yuto makes his voice heard to make her look at where he is. It turns out, he is above her and close. Yuto grins as he declares his payback for the blessing she gave him. He punches her in the stomach with his fist energized with the God Annihilation curse. He then lands on the floor. The mentor then sees that her green healing light is slowly turning red. She can tell that she has reversed as she sees her fingers break into pieces. She then feels intense agony. Her screams will not stop as she talks to the divine authority about how much she hates that their blessing is causing her deep pain. Her agony continues like internal explosions. Denying the reality of being forsaken by her god, the mentor reached out to the skies as her body was torn apart. Cast away, her podium shatters and she falls to the ground pathetically. Left with no choice, she faces Yuto and begs for his help. Her blessing of salvation was going to be reversed, and the more she reaches out, the more it will all turn to pain. She struggles to accept it for a while, but the little light in her eyes soon leaves, and her body falls limply. The familiar sparks appeared around their bodies, indicating their victory. As always, she screen appears before the young man, granting him a unique weapon and magic stones, as a reward for the feat. With all that settled, he turned around to check if everyone was safe and sound. Although beaten and bruised, the three were fortunately alive and smiling at him. They confirmed their conditions, albeit being sore all around. After he took out the boss, the minions attacking them disappeared as well, so now all they could do was thank him for the help. Also, it was their turn to ask him if he's okay after all that happened. Yuri is particularly worried, even nearly losing it earlier after watching him die so many times. Yuto was honestly at his limit already, but it's precisely because he piled up all those deaths that he managed to win. It's not such a bad feeling when he thinks about it. Still curious, Kogu asks about the final blow he dealt, not knowing about the reversal at all. The young man admits that he doesn't understand it himself, but after dying repeatedly and seemingly endlessly, he could suddenly use the God Annihilation interpretation skill. Also, based on that, his existing skills might still have other things hidden within them. His teacher laughs, knowing he might surpass him one day if he gets any stronger. As humble as ever, he denies the idea and makes excuses for his strength. After all, someone like him is in a completely different league from a dominator like Kogu. Since he doesn't realize what he's saying, his master notes that in the Bureau-led Zeus conquest, Yuto continuously fought in the front lines to drive progress, defeated the top floor boss, and conquered the Great Magic Sky Tower. He's already impressive on his own, and has earned the title of the Great Dominator for his own name. It sounded like a joke to him, but it was as real as it could be. The window popped up again, notifying them of the imminent teleportation. Before they flashed away, Yuri says the role and title fit him perfectly. He still doubts it, but she and the others insist that he should also have the confidence to carry the name. After all, he was so cool during the fight. Not used to all the compliments, he keeps quiet for a while, keeping his emotions in, and thanks them with a great big smile. With this, the Great Zeus Conquest operation ended. Numerous participants were left severely injured, with the worst dying in battle. It was all closed now. The window confirms the disappearance of a regional administrator within a specific area. The remaining cluster of magic sky towers under its control begins reformation. Having been teleported back outside, Yuto stared at the Zeus dungeon, still unable to believe that he is able to conquer it. While he was lost in his thoughts, a man suddenly pointed in the defeated dungeon's direction, saying there are more magic sky towers around it. Hearing this, the young man turned around in shock, confirming the claim. As unbelievable as it was, other towers had indeed begun popping up around them. Standing from the ground and reaching the heavens, the scarlet-red color demanded everyone's attention. Despite the red towers in the middle of the city, the civilians went on with their lives as though nothing was wrong. It's been 2 months since Zeus had been conquered and disappeared. Spurred by a conquest led by the Bureau, the tower's top floor boss was defeated. However, the moment Zeus vanished, the other magic towers appeared and transformed the city all at once. These new, ominous, crimson magic towers left the public with a vague, unsettling feeling. A bunch of grunts and annoyed noises emerged from the crowd. A bunch of men bump into a woman, who apologizes and is in an obvious disguise. He tries to reach out and start a fight, but he's left to curse out as the crowd blocks his way. With her pursuers intent on reaching her, she has no choice but to run even farther and deeper into the alleys. The woman finds herself in an odd area that looks like a random construction site. When she realizes that it wasn't a construction site at all, voices rang from behind as her chasers closed in. Left with no other choice, she enters the area, which is also the ruins of the Magic Sky Tower. Again, the men chasing her quickly follow, and ask if she really thought she could escape by running in there. She turns to them and also questions how far they plan to pursue a single woman. Things don't have to be this way, and she can just hand over the weapon they want, but she claims ownership, since she's the one who found it inside the tower. Yet, to snatch the fruits of her work, they targeted her even in the outside world. They discussed her, but her sentiments toward them have no value. Judging by her movements and gear, they reckon she's a rookie who doesn't know how things work. Once inside a tower space, the pecking order is decided by power alone, and the same goes for ruins that are still under the Magic Sky Tower's influence. If she hadn't ran into a place like that, then she wouldn't have had to fight as a challenger. Watching him charge in, she summons her weapon, and defends with the sword they're all so intent on stealing. It's said to have been hidden in the tower, even having its own unique inscription. In her hands was the emblem sword, Evolution Crest. Filled with greed, the men charged at her with huge smiles on their faces. She tries to fight back against the paired attack, but helplessly falls to the ground despite the powerful sword in her hands. They could sell it for a huge fortune, so letting it go wasn't even an option. The girl was starting to get desperate, and pleaded for mercy as it's the first partner she found in the Sky Tower. While they laughed at her, someone else entered the area. With a smug smile on his face, the evil thug snatched the weapon from her hands and told her to knock him out if it's so important to her. Just then, a familiar voice spoke, understanding what all the commotion is about. Yuto approaches and coldly questions what they're doing. No matter how anyone looks at it, the girl is obviously the victim, and they're the villains. Scoffing at him, one of the larger men tells him to back off. They're mid-tier raiders, and he won't even get a chance to play hero against them. Told to leave, Yuto grips his arm and effortlessly slams him into the ground. Despite knocking him out in one blow, he says he doesn't want to fight either, and demands that they return the sword they took from the lady. The man trembled after seeing his friend completely defeated. He recklessly charged in, feeling like there was no other option to take. He wanted to avoid this, so Yuto could only sigh in resignation and send him flying with a swing. They were a joke to him, and it became clear to everyone why. The others stared in shock, recognizing the weapon in his hand, which they've seen in the news. It's Theos, the conquest reward for conquering the magic sky tower, Zeus. Their faces lose their color and make the connection that the man before them is none other than the world's newest dominator. Yuto's reputation now precedes him, but since the situation hypes him up as an incredible guy, he can't just abandon a poor girl. If they know this and still won't give the sword up, then they better be ready to take him on in a fight. Told to be ready to fight, the thugs choke up and struggle to choose their next action. Seeming to value the sword more than their lives, one man rushes in haphazardly. His friend tries to stop him, but realizes that the Dominator is still a human despite his achievements. If they catch Yuto off guard while he's distracted, there should still be a chance. Waiting for the right moment, he watches as his comrade strikes the young man, who defends without even batting an eye. It was his chance, so he moves away from the girl and circles to his enemy's blind stop. The girl is surprised by how fast he closed the gap, and he was already moving to slash at the Dominator's exposed back. Sick of it, Yuto quickly handles and subdues the man in front of him, and turns to face the foolish challenger who thought he could be him. Devoured by his power, a mere glare and a glimpse of his strength makes the thug tremble. Frozen in shock, he leaves himself completely open for a quick smack. The hit sends his body tumbling across the ground and crashing into the wall. Meanwhile, the tower's sword spun in the air and fell perfectly into the Dominator's hands. Pointing at the half-dead man, he apologizes to his friends, saying he thought he was holding back. While he's shaking the man awake, the others run away, screaming in fear. Yuto tells them to take their unconscious friend, but the girl waved for his attention. She brightly thanks him for getting her sword back, and he correctly identifies her as a rookie challenger. There are a lot of kind people among them, but there are also jerks who'll try to steal from others. Taking her sword back, the woman stared at him, as if studying a subject. She smiles and says he really is the real deal. Having made a name for himself, he's now called the Heavenly Dominator. He dismisses it and argues that he isn't all that famous, but was actually featured in all of the media after Zeus was conquered. 2 months ago, Zeus' disappearance was followed by all the nearby sky towers turning bright red. The Bureau responded by sealing them all off. Until they investigate the interior and identify risks inside, it was necessary to distract the public, and they had the perfect plan for that. Fuyu suddenly told Yuto that his press conference was ready. He exclaimed in confusion, but ended up being put on a pedestal much higher than he deserved, all as a distraction. Not minding all that, the woman says she's just looking for someone. She comes close, just inches away from his face, and says she needs someone who'll conquer a magic tower with a beginner like her. Basically begging, she says she just took the sword and ran, since she struggles with fighting monsters. Before he knew it, she was already gripping his hand and dragging him along to her odd adventure. Flustered, Yuto argues that it was all happening way too fast, so she suddenly pouts and, with glistening eyes, asks if he's declining her request. Blushing from the soft hands holding his, he gives in and accepts, now unable to meet her eyes. With this, they walked through the city together. He still couldn't believe that he's a celebrity. Seeing Fuyu's billboard, which shows her undeniable beauty, he argues that real celebrities are supposed to have that much glamour. That said, the billboard just makes it abundantly clear how photogenic she is. While he considers getting her autograph next time, his new partner sulked. She tugs on his arm and asks what he thinks about the girl on the sign next to her. On the next billboard was an extremely popular and cute idol. The woman balloons with pride, slipping and saying she was cute indeed. It was just about time to reveal her identity, so she removes her sunglasses and introduces herself as the one whose popularity is skyrocketing. People see her on the internet and on TV every day, the super famous solo idol, Saki. The crowd around them started looking, as she finally revealed who she was. On the other hand, Yuto was awkwardly silent, not knowing how to react to the unexpected twist. The people surrounding them started mumbling and taking photos of the real celebrity next to the fake and manufactured one. The solo idol whose popularity was rising off the charts was in the street, and Yuto questions why someone like him was standing beside her. Given her current occupation, he wonders why she wants to be a conqueror. After all, she could get hurt in a fight and doom her career forever. Hearing that he's worried about her, is surprisingly enough to put a warm smile on the girl's face. Saki is well aware that challenging the magic tower is dangerous in itself. Regardless of the risks, she persisted, and they soon reached Thor's tower. The pair reached the 5th floor in no time, and find themselves facing a raging sky serpent. Fortunately, the monster gets easily swatted away by Yuto. However, it somehow softened its crash, and poised itself to attack once more. The avian creature attacked from above this time, but it was still far too slow for the Dominator, who spent nothing more than an instant to cut it apart. Saki is amazed by the display of strength. Monsters on the lower floors are easy to beat, as long as you keep your guard up. He tells her to keep that in mind, and avoid climbing higher until she's used to it. His advice falls on deaf ears, as she just fawns over how great of a challenger he is. The continuous praise makes him bashful and unable to meet her eyes. Meanwhile, he notices another enemy swooping in from behind the girl. He quickly grabs her by the waist, and manages to pull her to safety right before the attack hits. With the arrival of the new enemy, it was finally time for her challenger debut. She's allowed to explore and try things out, while he stands guard in case things get dicey. With his reassurance, Saki charged in with her unique blade. Closing her eyes while swinging, the attack comes wide with the target easily dodging away. It counters, and the sound of their weapons clashing fills the corridor. Things were quickly taking a turn for the worse, and the girl was already cornered. Just then, the monster froze, sensing Yuto's terrifying energy watching from nearby. His glare dared it to deal a lethal blow. Threatened, the monster froze, giving the newbie an opening to slash across its chest. Incurring a fairly deep wound, it screeched loud, sending massive sound waves throughout the dungeon. While Saki was confused, her veteran partner already knew what was coming. The beast had called for backup, which were already flying towards them. There's way too many of them, and there's no way for her to win on her own. With this, Yuto apologizes, finishing the initial enemy in an instant. He asks her to step back, while he takes them all down. He does as promised, intending to regroup once he finishes the job. There's one last fighter nearby, and it was already diving towards him. The powerful impact lets it drive its weapon deep into the ground, but it doesn't hit its target as the young man was already in the air. Equipped with his powerful blade, he cuts the beast in half with one seamless strike. The demonstration earns Saki's praise again, but now with a recognition of how scary he is. However, things didn't seem to be over yet. Upon turning around, they see the enemies propping themselves up, and before the humans could stop them, screeched to call for backup again. The avian monsters answered the call, and now came from both sides to collapse on them. Yuto couldn't believe the annoying predicament, as the room was now filled with the enemies. The sheer number of enemies was insane, and there are way too many of them. To Saki's surprise, Yuto suddenly released his weapon and took her hand. The unexpected touch flusters the idol, and she blushes while asking what he's doing. Unfortunately, their sweet moment crashes as he pulls her away to escape from the horde. While she finally understands the situation, she can't help her face from being red. Things were quickly turning bad, with the tower essentially acting like a maze. For now, they have to make sure not to panic, and use the terrain while calmly making decisions. They hid in corners and crevices, and this serves as an important lesson to the newbie, that fighting head-on isn't always the solution for challengers. Staring into her eyes, Yuto emphasizes that this is what it means to stay alive in the tower. She's fortunately receptive to his teachings, but loud screeches rang throughout the hall. The enemies have already found them, so they have to keep moving. Walking through the dark corridors, their footsteps gradually sped up with time. That is, until they stop in their tracks upon reaching an odd space that was filled with familiar ores. Embedded in the walls were magic stones glowing with power. Just then, Saki warns Yuto about the weapon speeding his way from behind. He manages to react and parry the ambush in time. The monsters had finally caught up to them, but it wasn't everyone. Now, he just has to wipe the small group out before they can call for backup. Taking a long look, the girl notices that something was off about the creatures. One gripped its weapon tight and swung at a clump of magic stones. Upon being hit, the stone hummed with mana and glowed even brighter, almost like a hostile and unstable bomb. The impact must have caused the energy inside to run rampant. Noticing this as well, Saki starts to panic, and rightfully so, as the enemy hits the stone again, causing a huge bolt of magic to shoot right at them. The power is immense, so they have to do their best to jump away in time. However, their troubles didn't end there, and it was only just starting. Using the stones scattered throughout the hall, the bolts of magic traveled with unbelievable speed, connecting to each other and drawing even more magic with each pass. With this, it's as if they're surrounded by a net of amplified mana. This was the worst-case scenario, and a raging bolt also destroys the opening that they came from. Escape was no longer an option, so they have no choice but to take the monsters down and stopped the rampaging energy waves. Seeing the young man charge in, the enemies spun their weapons in unison. This drew the bolt towards them, but instead of being hit by the concentrated strike, they redirect it towards Yuto. He's stunned, unable to react fast enough from the attack that reached in the blink of an eye. Just like that, he screamed in pain from the direct hit and died on the spot. Saki was horrified and wailed. His skill kicked in, reviving him and reversing the debuff with vitality. Brought back to life, he now understands the situation. He thought they were just small fry and didn't expect them to use their surroundings. Despite how clever the method is, Yuto just smiled in amusement. Yuto barely dodges an energy blast, but two more immediately come his way. Instead of running away, he dashes in between them and gets smug. However, he realizes that his confidence is misplaced when he sees the attack hit the stones behind him. Understanding the danger, he urgently calls to Saki, who belatedly finds the bolts surging toward her. They were a second away, and one hit would mean instant death. Just then, Yuto appeared between them. With a determined gaze, he vows to never let them hurt the young lady. The bolts hit him again, this time on each side, but the barrage wasn't done and another was coming from the center. Like before, his gut-wrenching screams rang while his body was electrocuted with millions of volts. Saki was frozen and her face was pale, unable to do anything but watch as his smoking body fell, released from the shock. Fairly charred, he dropped limply right in front of her, and there was no point in even asking if he's okay. She tries to wake him up, desperately kneeling and shaking his body helplessly. He could have just abandoned a weak beginner like her, completely absorbed in begging him to be alive. The girl doesn't notice the enemy swooping from behind. Just then, Yuto's warm voice spoke, assuring her that he won't die, so there's no need for her to cry. Parrying the monster's attack, he says the tears of an idol are too good for a guy like him. His sudden appearance leaves Saki confused, and she looks back and forth between him and the now empty spot where his corpse was. Finally, she makes the connection and says it must be the new skill that was reported on the news. There was no longer any use in hiding it, so he shares that he also actually died earlier, when the first electric shock hit. Since he has the resurrection skill, he tells her to use him as a shield, but she refuses. Even if he comes back an infinite number of times, she refuses to go through that awful feeling again. That said, what can she, a level 1 with bare minimum stats, do to stop it? Provoked, the idol vows to level up and increase her stats, for the sake of fighting better. She moves forward and asks how many monsters she has to defeat to do that. At level 1, challengers normally just have to defeat a couple to rise up. Saki interrupts him from saying any more, now certain that she can do it. For now, she apologizes to him and walks up to the monster he injured. She'll be stealing his kill for herself. The level up window pinged, but Yuto was left shocked by what was happening. She has a skill that no other conqueror has ever acquired, an incredibly rare one at that. Despite the other monsters shooting bolts that could kill her, she stood still until they were inches away. Her power is extremely simple. It takes all the experience points and stats she gains and multiplies them by 10, dodging perfectly and taking the enemies out with one swing. Saki reveals that his skill's name is Hero. With the revelation of the seemingly omnipotent skill, the magic stones hummed with power again and shot a near-endless barrage of energy at Saki. She dodges each one with focus and agility she didn't have before. Despite her hero skill, her base stats are incredibly low, so she's not exactly born for the role. In that short moment, she rose from level 1 to level 8, allowing her to fight. Earning her right to gloat a bit, she winks and asks if he's surprised. Anyone naturally would be, but with this, they can fight the pesky monsters on equal footing. Recognizing the threat they become, the enemies kick it up a notch and fly high. They waste no time and send powerful blasts at their targets. The difference is, Saki can now dodge those speeding electric attacks on her own. She does just that, and since Yuto no longer has to worry about protecting her, he makes a move. One leap closes the gap and brings him to the enemy in an instant, eager to end it fast. However, his path is cut off as the blast shoots between them, interrupting his attack. He just clicks his tongue in frustration, cursing the annoying magic. If only there was a way to deflect them with just a sword like they are, but they're using odd rods that are able to redirect it. With a normal weapon, touching those waves could spell death for them, and he'll just get scorched all over again. While he looked around his surroundings, looking for a way to win, the enemy spun its staff and sent even more bolts at the young man. Now knowing what to do, he dodges with a purpose. Since he can't deflect the bolts, he raises his blade and shatters a clump of stone. Now, he just has to do that to everything else. The plan is to deploy fragments of the stone around them and have them intercept the bolts for him. They've been playing for a while already, and since they've had their fun, it was their turn to get scorched by the surging mana. He throws a stone and uses it to redirect the bolts at the monsters, who are stunned by the unexpected counterattack. The first target manages to raise its rod, but the power is so strong that it's knocked away from its hands. Loud screeches rang as the monster was electrocuted with millions of volts. Noticing something missing, Yuto smiles in satisfaction and leaves the rest to his partner. Saki was already moving, and with a demonic expression, raised her blade over the enemy. With a shallow apology, the hero takes all his experience points. After cutting the monster in half, Saki's power immediately took effect, giving her enough experience to rise 2 levels. Satisfied, she wastes no time and speeds forward to kill the remaining enemy. While descending to the ground, she couldn't stop herself from smiling. On the other hand, Yuto watched her intently. Given her ability to multiple her stats and experience points gained, it is only a matter of time before she surpasses him, Fuyu, and even Kogu, to stand at the pinnacle of their leagues. With proper support, she might actually just become the real hero. For now, the bright girl skipped to him with a smile on her face, but was interrupted as a bolt struck the space between them. Even with the monsters defeated, the place was still too dangerous to rest in, and they had to find an exit quickly. The way they came in was completely blocked by rubble, but there must be another passage. While doing their best to dodge the waves, Saki spots exactly what they're looking for. Beyond a huge cluster of magic stones, the passage continued. Confirming it, he delightfully praises her with a thumbs up. The stone blocking the opening isn't simple rubble, but is something that's easy to break. As such, the only thing left to do is break it into little pieces. Calling to his partner, he tells her to wait for his signal. The two charge in together, moving as if they have for years already. However, the power inside the magic stones suddenly surged and rampaged. It sends multiple and huge bolts of energy at the humans, but the two dodge without an ounce of hesitation. Such a thing won't be enough to take them down. It was time for the Dominator and the hero to strike, and they do so with perfect teamwork. Their power breaks through the clusters, and they finally make it out of the hostile room. It feels like the dazzling and perfect end to the start of their journey, but the energy explodes right behind them, causing the opening to cave in. Just like that, it was blocked again, and it felt like they were being pushed deeper and deeper into the cave. Realizing that she was mumbling on her own, Saki turned to Yuto. He had a grim look on his face, and announced that it was bad. Where they are right now is the one place he never intended to come to. The space around them made danger alarms blare in his head. Enlightening the newbie, he shares that he originally had business in the Tower of Thor. The plan was to fight in the safe area until Saki had her fill, and leave to explore this place by himself. A little while ago, a high-ranking challenger party got lost in a huge open space in the tower. They fought on the front lines of the Zeus expedition and were known to be strong. However, against the master of this space, the party was completely helpless. Something comes from above, and he doesn't even react fast enough. It comes crashing down to meet them at the bottom. The monster far surpasses the mid-bosses of Thor, and is an irregular monster, estimated to be on a league of its own. Actually, he came there to subjugate it. With the head of a lion, the evil horn roared. One day ago, in the Challenger Management Bureau, Fuyu worked on endless stacks of paperwork as usual. The door to her office suddenly opened, so she closes her laptop and says she's been waiting for him to come. Her visitor was Yuto, who oddly looked around her room for no reason. Ever since he conquered Zeus, he was subject to waves of press conferences, interviews, and TV appearances. Now, he has no choice but to be on guard after they worked him to the bone. Having gone through it before, he asks if she has guards, lying in wait to apprehend him. She calms him down, promising there's no one like that there, and blatantly lies that they'd never even make him do such things against his will. In any case, his help allowed them to divert the public's attention from the Red Towers. Their investigation has concluded that the change in color did not affect the danger levels at all. As such, they won't need to forcibly apprehend him anymore. Moving on, he asks why she called for him this time. Suddenly taking on a serious tone, she asks if he's ever heard of the Magic Sky Tower, Thor. He saw something about it on the way to the director's office. It's the tower where a mid-boss was just defeated. Everything he said is correct, but she adds that spanning from the near top and bottom floors, a massive open atrium has been discovered. The news perplexes the young man, but she just continues, saying they seem to have found the master of the tower in that space. Yuto asks her to wait for a moment. It's an established rule that monsters at higher levels of the tower are stronger. In the case of a large space that pierces through multiple floors, what happens to the strength of the monster inside it? Judging from the reports, the master of the atrium is on par with a top-floor class monster, and might even be as strong as a final boss. Now, the Bureau would like Yuto to subjugate that monster. It's a highly irregular being, and if there's a chance that even he can't defeat it, then they'll classify the beast as a certified threat. The mention of the label reminds him of the Iron Serpent. If the enemy now is anything like it, then its existence endangers all the other conquerors. Unwilling to let a similar massacre happen, he's filled with determination and accepts the mission he's been given. Thanking him, Fuyu shares that they anticipate a battle with intense vertical movement in the atrium. For that reason, they've prepared something for him. He's surprised, not expecting to see such a familiar item. Unable to stop the huge grin on his face, he borrows the tool. The monster roared in the atrium. Eager to start the fight, it pounced at the human with deadly speed. Its paw destroys the ground beneath them, but Yuto fortunately manages to jump away. This was only just the beginning, and the monster started to rise to the sky. All they could do for now was stare in shock and worry, realizing that the boss could freely fly throughout the space. Saki was already starting to lose hope, but the Dominator just smiled. It was time for the unique item to make its debut. The bracelet reward from Protea's fall appeared around his wrist. It's a unique piece of equipment, Mikani. While the girl looked at the accessory in confusion, he explains that it isn't just any piece of jewelry. From an alternate dimension, it can shoot out an arm at an incredible range. He tries it out, and the bladed rope shoots right past the winged lion. However, it wasn't a miss. As Yuto was aiming for the wall behind it, he pulled himself forward, not expecting to use this arm himself. With the help of the item, he shot forward and cut through the enemy's chest, starting the aerial battle. Yuto slashes the evil horn's shoulder just as he launches himself up into the air. He then lands on one of the atrium's platforms. He can tell that the monster is still strong despite his solid hit. The monster is now furious at him. It flies higher above Yuto with its wings now glowing. He can tell that it is about to launch an energy attack, so he wants to hurry to another platform. The monster blasts him with a rapid fire of energy as he swings away. Some of them manage to wound him, but he still manages to escape the brunt of the damage as he successfully swings to another platform. Just as he is resting, the monster faces him again and charges up its wings to fire more. It fires another barrage of lasers, which kills him. He revives himself on top of the creature to strike it down. The creature tries to shake him off, so it moves wildly. It rushes upwards at high speed, making Yuto hold on tightly. He sees that the ceiling is getting near. The monster suddenly stops, leading Yuto to get pushed higher. He finds his balance and is able to put his foot on the ceiling to stop the smash. He jumps back down and clashes his sword with the monster's horns. Just as he is about to strike again, the monster rams him to push him back. It then grabs him with its giant arm. The creature dives down, dragging Yuto along. He can tell that the monster wants to smash him to the ground at high speed. The ground breaks like there was a meteor strike. Yuto ends up lifeless. The evil horn roars to signal its victory. Saki feels like she can no longer stand back while Yuto is giving it his all. She makes a sword stance as her sword glows for battle. Saki was watching Yuto fight the evil horn and was amazed by how strong he was. It made her feel like she had to step up. So, she jumped on the platforms in an attempt to get near the battle. She got near the monster just as it killed Yuto by slamming him to the ground. She told herself that just watching is not befitting of the title of hero. It disturbed her to see Yuto's lifeless body. She told herself that he is okay because of infinite resurrection and that he might even be able to defeat the creature eventually. Even so, she wanted to help him in battle. She readied her sword for battle and declared that it was a hero's job to help. A notification told her that her emblem sword had resonated with her spirit. It told her that the ability of First Crest Release can now be used. Saki wondered what it was, but went along with it as she posed for battle. She activated First Crest Release, which made her sword glow. Now, in the present, the evil horn charges at her. She is not afraid and makes a slashing motion, which sends a slash of light energy towards the creature. The creature dodges